So you're recording.
Yeah, we had to include Jim's, right?
Just tell them we started and just
collecting. Alright, I'll just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, maybe she can get back to them later on. It's running.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, so as I say, you pull up this email, got a whole bunch of information in it. You're like, oh, that's cool. I really want to dive in and click on somebody. Just to give you an orientation, if we can pull a photo out of Zoom info or otherwise, it'll appear there. We'll get you, they show the name, email address, phone number, web address, recent activity, and then this is their lead score, their cumulative lead score. We'll talk about that a little bit. People who are brand new to the site, it'll flag as new. So it gives you a heads up as to, whoa, new opportunity potentially. If you click on any of these, I'm not going to click this one because it's going to take us right to our instance. But to dive into the MCM, so this is the visitor ID portion of SharpSpring, where if you were to click through to that email, it takes you to this aspect of the application. And what you get is that long-running list of either anonymous or named visitors.
And how fast your internet is?
Yeah, exactly. And there's some sort features over here. You can view new leads, returning leads. So here's a case where this company came to your website an hour ago. They visited 4 pages. You scroll down, this is where you see literally what they viewed and how long they were there. Yeah. And then if they had a repeat visit, if they had a long history, it would all show down under here also. You can convert to a lead if you wanted to. There is, trying to find an example of, all right, HubSpot's not the best example, but here's a case where if you get somebody who you drilled into via this visitor ID, and you see this green Get Contacts button, what SharpSpring is doing is, again, tapping Zoom info databases, and they'll pull up a list of key individuals at that organization. And this is where you could say, you know what, I know for a fact it was Steve Haas. I know for a fact because I just talked to him, and in fact he was on the site when I was there. You could convert that anonymous lead to Steve Haas, and then thereafter, when somebody with that tracking code from that laptop or PC came to the site, it would get tracked as Steve Haas. But you can see the danger here. What if it really wasn't Steve? What if it was Corey? Now I'm, you know, I'm on the trail of Steve when really it's Corey.
So that DSS Pro Diesel, when you clicked on that, these are the possible.
No, this is HubSpot.
This was for HubSpot. I didn't see the, I'm going to go back a page. Yeah. If you see the green Get Contacts button, that's an alert that they've got a list of named contacts that you can convert. If you just see the name, I think you can convert that to, it's still, it'll get converted to a lead, but it's not really assigning it to a specific individual.
Okay.
So they would start showing up in Contact Manager as a named lead, but it'd be the company name.
Okay. So I think I know who it is, but if in the future somebody else from that company came in, it would look like him, right?
If they came through that same tracking code. I mean, it's very particular. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
And there's a way you can, I'll show you, you can manually add leads. So if you're like, I know for sure it was Steve from DSS, I'm not going to risk converting. I'm just going to go, I mean, there's nothing to prevent you from manually adding a lead who never came to your site.
Okay.
You know, that's what you do when you buy a list and import it. You know, then you're going to message out to those people via email and try to get them to your site. So this is just kind of a, hey, who's coming to our site? What kind of companies, you know?
So is HubSpot like a provider or something like that? Or?
HubSpot's actually marketing automation company.
Oh,
Yeah, they're a little more pricey. I think their price point's $4,000 a month.
okay, so they're going to our site, and I'm probably going to get.
Yeah,
spam
probably
later.
prospecting, and yeah. So that's what that whole visitor ID daily email does. Like a little dashboard. Hey, who's coming? Who is here? If something seems intriguing, click it. It'll bump you over to. I think because of the screen view, it's not showing up, but that's the visitor ID component. So it'll drill you right into that. All right, a couple of things I want to point out, just kind of orient you to SharpSpring. When you log in, by default, you get taken to this campaigns dashboard screen. You know, if you drill in through the daily email, you'll bump into the visitor ID. If you just log in, they take you here, which is, as I said, just a dashboard. I'm going to try to reduce this a bit. Yeah, there we go. This is a little more representative of what you actually see, you know, at a full screen view. So, what I want to talk about, a couple things just to orient you. If you're an administrator and you want to change anything in your configuration, you click on the little gray ghostly avatar, hit settings. I'm only going to point out 3 or 4 things in here. My account is your own personal account, so if you want to change your email address or anything, you would do it there. Email syncing, I think we have it enabled for you guys.
I'm not sure.
What email syncing does is you can configure SharpSpring to kind of sniff and snoop on emails from you to other people who are in your contact manager in SharpSpring. So it's enabled for these guys. So if I'm in Mike's contact manager and Mike's a user in SharpSpring and he emails me through Outlook or another outside email application, SharpSpring will capture that message and store it as part of my life of a lead. You can't really email out of SharpSpring, you know. It's not like you can sort, filter, and respond, but you know, the idea being, hey, that's part of the line of communication he's got with me. And just like he wants to know when I fill out a form or visit a website or open an email, you know, he may want to know, or Craig may want to know if Mike's been emailing me. So we'll show how you can view some of those. Company profile is just your company profile. Address, phone number, all that happy stuff. User accounts is where you would add and or modify other users from within your company who have the ability to log into SharpSpring. There's a variety.
Actually, email can be turned off, isn't it, for that?
It's a way to prevent us from, you know, we don't want to capture every email you send to Craig.
Oh, okay, got it.
So we're saying, hey, you can whitelist particular email addresses.
Got it. Okay.
Whitelist your wife's email address, so you know, hey honey, how's it going? It doesn't get, you know. But user accounts is where you set up different users. There is one of the documents in your packet. It's called Overview of User Roles. This is a document that's actually in the help section, which I'll show you how to get to SharpSpring Help. But this defines, it's one of the stapled ones, and it's got this grid on it.
There you go.
So this talks about different roles and permissions for how you can set your people up. Site admin can do any and everything. Company manager, you can designate somebody a sales manager or a marketing manager. And then you can have junior salespeople. And this chart just shows you what capabilities and which features they can and can't see. Right now, I think you guys are all set up as administrators. So administrators, for example, see all of these menu items up top. Somebody at a salesperson role, no, that didn't work. The salesperson would only see contacts and sales. It's like, dude, you're not doing any automation, you're not creating emails, you're not doing analytics. We just want you to go look at your leads, working through the pipeline, and follow up. Conversely, a marketing person doesn't see the pipeline, and I think they still see some of the contacts features, and having the importing lists into accounts. Because you're a marketer, right? Mm-hmm. Are you coming to this from marketing or sales perspective?
Operation, but I'll be part of marketing.
Okay. So you've got these users. If you want to add a new user, you just click up here, Add Users. If you want to change permissions on anybody, you click their name. You can change their password if you wanted to. So if somebody calls and says, hey, I forgot my password and I'm too lazy to use the lost password feature, you can just log in here, change it, and let them know what it is. This is where you set the different user roles. As I said, company manager, if you click that, you'll then get prompted for 2 sub-selections under there. And then actually, if you hover over these little bubbles here, it'll give you a brief definition of what the role is. And then this is where you set the email notifications, those visitor ID alerts, whether you want to get them daily, weekly, or not at all. So really, I'm kind of a super admin because I'm a Biznet user. Some of this stuff over here on the left you guys wouldn't even see. We'll touch upon some of these settings via some of the other stuff we're going to talk about. But most of this other stuff is, I end up going to our developers, to work this. So really, within the settings, it's, your own account, your company's user accounts, your company info, if you got a new phone number, changed your address. So that's where you find all that. When it comes to help documents, this little question mark up here, if you click it, this help docs, well, first I'll show page over. Like if you click that, SharpSpring will drop on this little semi-opaque pop-up. So if you're a little confused what the heck is that, you can click and you get a little bit of orientation. You can click and it'll go away. You click help docs, that's where you get access to their back-end. It's kind of a quasi-wiki and document storage. So like if I type user roles, I'll get that document we just looked at there. So it's keyword prompt. So, if you got a question about anything, importing a list, or changing a pipeline stage, or any of that, it's pretty robust. You guys won't see the support link. SharpSpring's business model is, like they work through agencies like us to then reach you guys. They don't want to be on the phone all day with their end users, so they kind of like, you could probably, well, I don't know if you could go to SharpSpring and buy your own, but then, then you're messing with all the ins and outs and all that stuff. So you guys wouldn't see the support. Setup videos are just like those beginning videos. We're getting stuff set up basically. So if you're in kind of that early stage, if you guys sign on and you're like, how do I do whatever? A lot of their help documents include embedded videos. So if you'd rather watch a video than read. So that's help. That's kind of the administrative section. Any questions? All right. I think the first thing we're going to do is talk about, I'm not going to go in order of these menu items. I'm going to focus on the sales stuff first. The first thing being contacts and contact manager. Contact manager is a be-all, end-all catalog of everybody who's loaded into your system. Whether they're active, inactive, whether you have an email form or you don't, whether they're dead, alive, or otherwise. They're all in here. The idea being, well, first of all, SharpSpring will keep track of people who have unsubscribed from emails, so we want to keep them in the contact manager to know we can't send to them. If we go delete somebody and we don't know we can't send to them, there's the risk we could send them again. But yeah, so this is a be-all, end-all listing. Over here on the left, there's a search bar. You can do a search from here. It'll find matches. You can click. There's also a search feature here in the middle. I don't know why they have 2 of them, but they do. I actually tend to find this one on the left a little quicker. You don't necessarily get this kind of glimpse into a little bit of detail about who it pulls up, but if you know for a fact somebody's in there and you don't want to sort through and type their name here, then you can click and get their detailed view. This page has a variety of filters you can assign. Well, first you can sort. So based upon your list, you can sort by lead score, creation date, when they were last updated, first name, last name, any kind of basic filtering features. You can also turn on filters, which then further winnow through, your list. You can filter by status. This is a good time to point out another document that's in here. So lead status is defined. This is kind of how SharpSpring defines lead, and around the terminology they use in the system. The idea being a contact is really anybody who should not be included in the sales process. You may want to store your vendors in here. You may want to store employees. but you like, I really don't want to message to them. I don't want to, outreach to them. You can still store their info in here, but they won't be really considered part of the sales process population.
That's contact. Right?
Yes. Open status is kind of the, if you're going to import a list and you're not sure what these people are, open is like the default. They're virgin, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just coming in clean, and then you can do things with them from there. Unqualified lead, if somebody's in your database and they called you and said, there ain't no way I'm buying what you're selling ever, you go flag them as unqualified. Qualified lead, you can self-identify somebody as qualified. You can set triggers based upon lead score, somebody becomes qualified. If somebody fills out a form on your website, SharpSpring automatically flags them as qualified, the presumption being, hey, they're interested in you. And then contact with opportunity is a flag that SharpSpring will send once you, and we'll show how to do this, once you create an opportunity for somebody, they get flagged as contact with opportunity. And so the idea being, you may conduct a campaign, an email campaign, saying, you know what, we're going to try to turn, I don't know, open people into qualified leads. You could run a list and say, I just want all people who are open. If they're already qualified, I don't care, because I'm going to message differently to open than I would to the qualified. Or if you're like stubborn and like you hit your head against the wall and say, I'm going to message the unqualified ones to try to win them over, you could sort on that too. So they maintain these statuses. So that's what you can do in here. Like if you're like, I only want to see, open leads, I could turn all this off. Based upon lead status, pretty much all your people are going to be open, I think. But it'll filter on that. Likewise, you can filter on owner. Everybody who gets added as a user in your SharpSpring instance is a potential owner. AKA salesperson, they own the deal, they own that prospect. So you can filter around that. You can filter by lists. If you've created lists and uploaded them, if you've either created lists to import at the outset or you've created ad hoc lists as you've been going along, you can sort by lists too. You can also sort by date. SharpSpring by default tends to grab the most recent month. So sometimes if you're in here and you're like, I'm not seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing, you might want to check and make sure your filters aren't turned on. If filters are applied, this button will turn green. But, like any web-based application, SharpSpring caches stuff. So sometimes if you're not, and when I turn them all off, they're still not showing. You hit this clear button, it'll kind of flush itself. So that's kind of an overview of what we get here. In this list, you get the individual's name, you get when they were added. This column is the campaign to which they are assigned. You can create various campaigns in SharpSpring just to manage what you're doing. Like if you determine, hey, we're going to do a winter 2015 campaign, we're going to send out 6 emails, and we could create a campaign for that, assign anybody who responds or gets a response to that email to that campaign, and then at the end come along and say, wow, look, we got 15 leads out of that. Or you can assign ROI values to it, a whole bunch of stuff you can do. This column here will show you if somebody's been assigned to an owner. If somebody has not, you can click here and readily just assign them ad hoc. And then over here, you get a long laundry list of features that you have access to. Today's not the day to go into all of these, but just to let you know, you can, ad hoc set somebody as unqualified. This is where you could potentially create an opportunity from this individual. I'm going to show you how to create an opportunity when we go into the detail page. You can clone a contact if you've taken a lot of time to build out a big, robust profile on somebody, and his brother works at the same place, and they just have a different email, phone number, and title, and name. You can just clone them. You can add somebody to a list from here. You can add to a workflow. You can change their campaign. You can change their owner. You can merge contacts. I just had a client this morning who's got, no lie, like 1,000 contacts they need to merge. What merge contact does is, if I've got Craig in here one time using his work email address, and I've also got Craig another time using his home email address, one time you click through at home. SharpSpring's email-based. Email is a unique identifier, so Craig can be in there twice. I could have 5,000 Craig Antonucci's. As long as they all have different email addresses, they can be in there. I can only have one if Craig at MCN1 or whatever. But I could take those two contacts and merge them and say, I don't care if Craig's logging in from home or work or whatever, it's him. And so you'd use the merge contact feature to, it'll prompt you to go type in, I'm not going to actually do it, but you go pick. So now I'm using that first individual. I'm going to go pick the guy I want to grab and kind of meld together. I click that, hit configure merge settings, and now I'm prompted for which data points take precedence.
Like humble.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh yeah, actually that's his last name I want to use. That's the website that, you know, and then you hit merge and then it folds them all up, merges their life with a lead activity.
And we can do the same thing with a company, for example. If you have 5 people from a company to sign them to the same.
There's an account feature we'll show you where you roll all those people up together. You can't really merge accounts, but you can combine people into one account.
Yeah.
I'll show you that. Unsubscribe. If you're on the phone with somebody and they say, hey dude, I love your emails, but please, I get too many, you can unsubscribe them right here. And then delete is the way to like totally purge somebody, wipe them out of your database so they're gone. So to view the details of an individual, you click their name. You are taken into this view. It's a 3-tabbed view. The overview is pretty much their name, rank, serial number kind of data. Once we get that to load up. You know, this is where you log their name, their email address, their company, their industry, their phone number. The lead score appears here. You know, they're a qualified lead. I realized, well, no, he's not. I want to change him. I can reset that here. But, you know, name, I don't have a title. I can click the pencil, add a title and save it. I can change the name in the same way. So all the basic information, all this stuff rolls up to formulate, to factor into the lead score. I think every one of these fields is like worth 1 point. So somebody could have a pretty high lead score just because you've got a robust profile on them. Other things that factor into a lead score are somebody's engagement and activity. Did they get an email? Did they open it? Did they click through? Did they visit an important page? Did they fill out a form? I'll show that a little bit, but that's high value stuff. You know, this is all kind of piddly stuff here. Description is, this will populate if somebody, you can set when you have a form on your website, if you have a comments field, if somebody fills it out, you can have that comments field populate this. This area down here is where I could go and add a comment. And this is really what you want to use to track activity and engagement with somebody.
Like your notes, right?
Exactly. Yeah, like in Salesforce, it's equivalent to like a note. And then I can add that comment, and it gets logged. It's assigned to me as a date attached to it. You know, I could go back and edit it if I want. So this will build like a running list of activity. Reminders is you can
have the entire history of the actions plan.
Right.
Right.
So if Mike came in tomorrow and logged another note, you know, Muhammad called later in the day, yeah, said don't call him tomorrow, call him next week or whatever, yeah, that would show up. So the next sales guy that comes in here can see, oh, Muhammad talked to Jerry and Mike, I'm not going to call him today, you know. You can set reminders down here for yourself. So I could say, you know, I can say what type of a reminder. Make a phone call.
So if you talk to somebody who says we're not interested in that until next March.
Right. Yep.
Reminder for next March.
I could assign it to somebody else. So Craig, you could come in and say, hey Mike, you got to call this dude, you know. And then if he's got if it's related to an opportunity, you could attach it to an opportunity. You guys don't have any, but they would be in the list. But yeah, then you could come in and say, you know, yeah.
So what would an opportunity be like in our case? You know, we build machines, so we list all these potential quotes that are out there or something. Okay.
And you can stage them out. Like we have, you know, our pipeline starts with first contact, then needs analysis, then we do what we call broad scope proposals, you know, and then proposals delivered. Then, so as you work people through the stages, so the opportunity, you can move it through the stage, but here you'd pick that particular opportunity. Like for us, it'd be, you know, brand new website. Yeah, for you it'd be machine XYZ, whatever.
Sure. And then that way, if there's a dozen people associated with that project, we can Catch them on the
Right. So this is a way, and what this does is triggers a reminder that will appear when you come back into SharpSpring. Little pop-ups will appear in the corner. You know, so on that date, hey, you're supposed to call Mohammed today.
And we can generate reports after this database. For example, reports for each cell processing or for each.
There's a when I get to the pipeline, I'll show you how to export the CSV. It's got everything you need.
Okay.
And then you can slice and dice it in Excel and sort it and filter it.
Those meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Custom fields is something that. Here's another document. I'm going to get this all out of the way. There's this document in here called standard fields. SharpSpring ships, you know, with a set of standard fields. That's pretty much what you see over here in the left column. You know, all this basic information. But of course, that doesn't capture everything you want to know about the prospect. You may want to know company size, revenue, countries they're involved in, dollar sales last year, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You may have an online tool that you use to pre-qualify, and you know maybe it's some kind of test or scoring system. You would want to know their score maybe. So that stuff you create custom fields, and that data gets stored as part of the context record as a custom field, and it would appear down here. When I bump back over to our Bootcamp instance, I'll show you. Like for example, you guys filled out that form, right? It asks what color team and who's your partner. Those are custom fields we created, and later we'll have you, well, if we would have done all the exercises, you guys would fill that out, and then that would become part of your record. You'll know, oh, these are, you know, so it's part of the profile. I may want to do an email campaign to, you know, all the pink team members and not the blue. So you can do a lot with that custom field stuff. You know, that factors into the automation. It's really powerful. Anything, and you guys are all data driven, so it makes less. You know, any characteristic trait data point you have on somebody in SharpSpring, you can use to do automations. Send a list, send an email, send a trigger. You know, if you're not storing that as a data point, you can't do much with it. I had a client today who took the time to build 11 different lists manually by adding people, and then they went in and accidentally deleted a list that they had imported that contained a lot of those people. They're all gone now. So it was a whole manual process. Like if they had imported those people and called them, this is my invitation, and created like a custom field, and made that a trait, then we could bring those people back in and run a list that would say, hey, if part of this list, if invitation custom field, add them to my new list. But yeah, custom fields would all appear down here. Up here, you can do all kinds of stuff. Again, some of this is redundant, a little redundant for that opening drop-down we saw. You can add to a list, add to a workflow. You can assign to a campaign. You can assign to an owner. So stuff we could do out from that longer menu on that first page, we can also do here. Life of a lead. This is where we get to snoop on people. Life of a lead shows you what people have done on your website. I'm going to probably bump over to our instance. Are you in here? Yeah. I'm going to stick here for a moment, and then I'm going to bump out of here. There's a whole series of icons that will show here that stand for a different activity. You know, the little globe is, they came to the website. So I can see Mohammed spent a minute on the sales team page and then a minute on the thank you page, which is a telltale sign and that he filled out a form. And sure enough, that's what this little clipboard is. So this tells me he filled out this sidebar contact form. And then this tells me this is in fact an email sync. He also emailed you guys. So this is what email syncing looks like. In this case, the down arrow means, you know, it was from outside, from Muhammad to us. If Mike went and replied to him, it'd be a green up arrow showing that it was an outbound email. But it would appear in the same way. So again, I can copy and paste this, you know, but there's no like reply to this email from here. You know, Mike or Craig would have to go back into Outlook and compose an email back to Muhammad. Yeah, you know, it gives you, again, if you're talking about, you know, what's the life of the lead, his engagement with us. Memberships is where this kind of shows how you're handling somebody, the different engagement points they have with you on a little bit broader level.
So, if I were to, so you can't send an email home, right?
Correct.
Right. So,
You can't send an Outlook-based email. If you have an email composed in here as part of a SharpString email,
right,
there's a smart email feature that you could use,
right,
but that's honestly more for a scripted, pre-composed, hey, Mohammed, I want to invite you to our, whatever, get together, open house with us.
So you're just going to copy that reply into an Outlook.
Yeah. And then when you reply to Mohammed, we'll snip that and capture it. It'll show up there. Because again, he's a contact in here. You're a user who has email syncing enabled. But yeah, the composing and the writing would take place in Outlook.
You just got to have sync enabled.
Yeah. All right. This isn't a real robust profile, so I'm going to bump back over to our Biznet Bootcamp. Let's just show you the range and depth of information that can be stored in the life of a lead or a membership tab. Anybody need a break or anything? Or we have pop up here. We have Gatorade. All right, I'm going to go to Contact Manager. I think Mike's our hero here. You're a football fan, right? Not lying. High school? I'm from Romeo. They're like kicking buckets.
Yeah, yeah.
There is a password reset on the login page. Did it work?
Oh, I actually just quit.
Yeah, hit that. It'll email it to you. All right, so Mike's an employee of ours. Can you guys still see that? Actually, I might have to go to his other persona. Oh, no, here we go. Mike's lead score is 182. And make him go click around and do stuff. If I go to his life of a lead, I got all this happy stuff. I'll point out what some of these things are. Again, that's a website visit. You hover over it, shows the date. You click it, it'll tell you which pages he went to and for how long. I can just click through here. That's a case where he visited or filled out a form. If I want to see what he put in the form, I can click View Form Data. And this is just a basic name, rank, serial number, but whatever you had in that form, his responses would show up here. There's another way via the forms I'll show you that you can view similar data and then also export it. So like you run a form out there and 50 people fill it out. You don't want to open up 50 people like this, but there's a way to export to CSV. This little funnel indicates that we created an opportunity and assigned it to Mike. Well, we created an opportunity where Mike is the contact for whom he's not the owner, he's the person we're trying to market to. So if you click that, it tells us he was created to an opportunity. If I click that, it would bounce me over to the opportunity. I'm not going to go there yet, but he made a web visit again. This little $ shows that it was converted to a sale. And then these other icons show, again, changes in opportunity status, dollar value or otherwise. So you get a whole variety of activity. This little person with the little circle shows he got assigned to a new lead owner. So over the life, we've got some leads in our system that you literally have to scroll along here and see all that stuff. You can filter if you're like, I really only want to know, sales events for Mike. There I go. Opportunity created, opportunity is probably updated, we created a couple for me. Conversely, if you're a marketing guy and you're like, I just want to know which emails he opened from us. And Mike didn't open any because we haven't sent him any. web visits. So you can get a variety of different views here. Memberships, as I said, is a collection of different ways we're connecting with Mike. If he had received emails out of SharpSpring, not email sync, emails out of SharpSpring, they would show up when I clicked here. You get a long list over here. Media, if Mike could click any media that we embedded in an email, like a PDF or a video or anything like that. Campaigns, shows which campaigns Mike has been assigned to. In SharpSpring, somebody gets, the very first campaign they get put into becomes their primary, and that's where all the reporting happens. But if you recall, I could go back here to Overview, and I could reassign which Mike's primary, what his primary campaign is. Devices. SharpString will track which devices somebody's coming from. So I can see Mike has visited from his PC and also from his iPhone. Treats him as the same individual because he's come via that same email address. But, if you want to know, hey, does this dude come more from his iPhone? Lists. If Mike was part of any lists, they would appear here. So, if you've got, you can create lists around anything. Title, executive level, location. So if Mike was part of any list, those would appear here. If any workflows were assigned to Mike, again, we'll talk about workflows a little bit. That's what really makes the automation happen. That's kind of what we want to do with people. Any opportunities that are assigned to Mike, and any forms Mike has filled out. So that's all under the membership tab. Any of these are hypertext. I want to bump over to this opportunity, you could click it and it would take us there. Before I go there, though, I want to show you one other thing. If I go back to Overview, when I hover over Mike's phone number, I can edit the email for his phone number and change it here. I can dial his phone number if I was so capable via my phone. But most importantly, I can log a call result. So let's say I called Mike today. I made an outbound call. I can select the result of the call, say spoke with Mike, and say, Mike today says no luck on my deal. And I can log this call. A couple of things happen. It gets logged as an event over here, but it gets treated a little differently as a call log. Also, it show up, you might need to refresh, but it shows up on life of a lead too. Again, there's another activity, another engagement we've had. There you go. So similar to email syncing where there's outbound, inbound. So you get a little, so touch points with the client or the prospect show up on the life of the lead. Again, this is that same laundry list of things that we have. We'll talk about send smart email a little bit later. So that's diving deep into a contact. Any questions?
I have a question about how you how do they basically get marked? So they fill out a form to get the email address, and when they come back, how do we know that it's the same person? How do they?
When they fill out a form, we drop a cookie on the PC.
Okay, and just read that.
Yeah. And so now, as long as they come back from that PC, like if you went home and came into our site from your wife's PC, you wouldn't know.
Right. So how did under I think Mike installed that he logged in under his phone as well. How does it know that it's the same person?
We can also drop a cookie if he opens an email. So in that case, Mike probably got an email from us, opened it on his phone. Because there's tracking code in the email too that does the same thing, drops a cookie out there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's really the, we need to, if we don't know who you are, we need you to tell us who you are by filling out a form.
Yeah.
If we know who you are, we need to send you an email and get you to come back to the website.
Gotcha. Because
now I know I know I'm sending you this email.
Yeah.
And I know which cookie, code I'm sending you. So if that shows up in my visitor tracking, and I go, hey, that's Josh.
But it's the iPhone associated with the email address, right? So.
But Mike could open, he could open his work email on his iPhone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it would be.
Right.
What if we cleared all the cookies on your computer and then went back to the website?
Yeah.
How does that?
We lose that cookie because it's their F1 track.
But then they would lose the login, you know, if they wanted to.
Right.
And then they have to.
Yeah, I mean, right. If somebody's diligent and, hyper cautious and make their cookies daily and wipe all that stuff out, you're right.
Okay.
I can't know it's you again.
Just curious.
Yeah.
But then in that case, that person's not integrated with not working with the business.
Yeah.
They're in so they would.
Honestly, these days, who has the time?
Yeah.
But, most people walking around with 50 apps open on the phone and they're being sniffed and tracked wherever they go. So. All right, so that's contacts. What I want to do next is, we talked about visitor ID, import tool. I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Well, actually, no. I'm gonna. This is an exercise we would normally do. You walk through it, so I'm just going to quick hit this. Import tool is a means whereby you can do a mass upload of a list. So if you went out and purchased a list, or you're doing a data dump from Excel or something, rather than having to manually enter these people, you can import them. To do an import in SharpSpring, at the least, it's got to be a CSV file, and at the least, you need columns in the spreadsheet for these 4 data points. First name, last name, company name, email address. You don't need data in every cell. So I can import somebody and all I have is their email address. But if they're part of a spreadsheet that has first name, last name, email, company, I can bring them in. It's going to be a pretty sparse profile for that person, but I can get them in. If you try to import a list and there's no company column, you'll get a kickback message from SharpSpring. Conversely, though, you could have a very robust spreadsheet that has all kinds of data, and on the fly, you can create custom fields around that. But really, what you do is, in fact, I have a test file out there. I would click Choose File. Where did I put you? Oh, there we go. It's a CSV file. I then say Upload CSV file. Now I get prompted for a couple of things. I could add these people to an existing list. So if for whatever reason, you were doing a 2-stage buy on a list, and you're like, oh, this is the second part, you can click Use Existing List. You start to type, you get prompted, and boom, you can add these people. Conversely, you can create a new list. So these people all get assigned to that list. This is where I can assign them in aggregate upon upload to a lead status. Again, going back to that spreadsheet. If you're unsure, bring them in as open. This prompts you, if you've already got a record in the database, again, email being the key identifier, you can choose here how you want to handle the duplicate. If I've already got Craig in my database and I've got him in the new spreadsheet, I can tell SharpSpring, ignore the new one totally. I don't want to change what's in there. Conversely, I could say, update only new information. Let's say Craig's been in there and all I had was his email address and his name, but now I've got all kinds of good data. I could say, hey, take and append it to his current record. And then conversely, I could update new and existing, which is really saying out with the old, in with the new. So you can control a little bit how you're managing and merging data. You can assign leads to a campaign. Same thing. If you went out and bought a list for your winter 2015 campaign, you could in one fell swoop assign all these people. You could assign them to a particular user. If Mike went to a trade show and came back with a list and said, here you go, these are all mine, we could bring them in and in one fell swoop assign them to Mike's. This is where you get asked to map your CSV columns and what you want to map them to according to what SharpSpring calls its field. So it recognizes, hey, you've got a column called first. I'm going to presume that's first name. And I can say, yeah, assign it to that. Conversely, I could say I don't want to import. If I just delete this out, we'll delete or defer to don't import. You may have a column in the spreadsheet you forgot to delete, and you're like, I really don't want that in the data. You can just say ignore it, so I won't bring it in. Conversely, you can. This is where, okay, this is not a default Sharp Spring field, right? It's important to us. I want to know what color, what team you guys are on. So I have in my spreadsheet a column called white team member, and it either says yes or no. I want to make that a custom field, a custom lead field. So now when I import that, SharpSpring is going to go create a custom field and populate it with whatever information for you guys and bring it in from the spreadsheet. This screen pops up and just asks you to confirm. You get a view of, what your sample data might look like. You say confirm, and you import. You get a little feedback here. I think that's just a little error that I had some errant rows that were unpopulated in my spreadsheet. But now if I go over to my list, and we'll come back to lists a little bit later, but this is the list I just imported. I can click it, and I had two members, Vanna White and Jack White. So, and if I open one of them, I'm going to see that SharpSpring created a list, a custom field. This did not exist prior to me importing that list, but I had a yes value in that cell, so boom, brought it in, assigned that status. One more thing before we leave Contact Manager, since I'm on the topic of adding contacts. You can manually add a contact. This green ubiquitous button up here gives you quick, easy access to some of the more common features in SharpSpring. If you want to create a new list, contact, account, whatever, rather than having to navigate over to here. And so I can go create a new contact. You have a little bit more leeway here. Doing list import, you need all those data points, at least in the spreadsheet. Here I can just say, I don't have to have an email address for him, but if I know it, I can. And I can add them. So you can manually add people. After you add, it then bounces you to this individual's overview screen, so if you want to fill it out in more detail. But, if you came back from a show or lunch and you had 4 business cards, and you're like, oh, just sit down and enter these. You could do it. You could hand them off to somebody and say, hey, manually add these. If somebody calls you out of the blue while you're on the phone, you can manually add them. So that's everything about managing and adding contacts. All right. I'll stay on this individual. Let's say a new opportunity arises for him. I can go over here, also from that front screen, I can say new opportunity. And then get presented this view. First I got to name the opportunity. That individual I added was not associated with a company. If they were, SharpSpring would fill in the company name here. Usually they use your email domain. It would recognize. This may not be a good example. But this is where it'll gather together other individuals from the same company. In fact, I'm going to bump back over to the MCM. I'm guessing you've got multiple individuals from But yeah, SharpSpring's a little different in that you create opportunities via an individual, not necessarily from an account. It kind of flips the model a little bit. Greg, is there anybody in here who has got a...
That's right, Kat. Or do you want the individual? Got one.
Okay, this is good. All right, so I'm going to pull up Mike Sparrow. Again, I could have clicked over here and said opportunity. I'm going to go new opportunity. And we must not have the company filled out for him, but what SharpSpring did do, though, is it recognized all these people at the common email address for Mike. It says, hey, we presume they're all part of the same account. Because what SharpSpring is going to do on the fly from here is create an account for, in this case, Caterpillar. So then I can go in, I can edit these contacts after I create the account, or I can add them here. A couple of key fields here. I've formerly been told these had to have a $1 value. I have a client who's got some of a 0, but I don't know yet. It might be because we imported them with 0. But I think you would at least need a $1 value on a deal. So if it's a really early deal and you're not sure what it's going to be worth, at least put $1 in there. You can change that later. Close date, same thing. You know, this is kind of a best estimate close date. You'll be able to modify it later. Pipeline is where you identify what stage it's in your sales pipeline, which we're about to get to. These, I think, are kind of the out-of-the-box pipeline stages that SharpSpring ships with. We can go and edit them. But we're going to say this is an initial contact. It's still an open deal. You know, if we eventually win it, we can flag it as 1. If we lose it, archive is just a way to get it out of the current pipeline and store it. So we're going to say this one's still open. I'm going to go assign it to Craig. And since it's way early and the default probability to close for the initial contact stage is 10%, we'll just leave it there. SharpSpring uses that for its forecasting. So I've given it a name. I had to enter the company name because I'm guessing for this guy we didn't have his company name filled in. Gave it a value, gave it a date, identified the stage, assigned it to who the lead owner is, assigned the probability to close, chose which other individuals I want to be assigned to this this account. We can go back later and edit this, so I'm going to turn these off for now. Another thing you can do here is, let's say Mike was assigned to this lead, but I went in here for this opportunity, assigned it to Craig. I have the option here to also assign Craig as the lead owner. So not only does he own this opportunity, but now we've given him ownership over Mike's Sparrow in this case. So then we save the opportunity. Okay. Life of a lead, we'll refresh it. If not immediately, shortly thereafter, it should show that Mike's got an opportunity created. There it is. We go to his memberships and we go down to ops. There it is. Okay. So now to see all of our opportunities and where they are, this is where we go to the sales menu. We go to pipeline. A couple of things here. By default, SharpSpring reverts to the current month. You can change this date span to whatever you want. We really don't have much in here, do we? All right, I'm going to bump over to, we'll go to Biznet. That way you'll be able to see the different stages and the different views and how to move things along. All right, so if I go to our pipeline, and actually I can show you we've got a couple of different pipelines going because you can have multiple pipelines. So these are our stages: pre-qual, needs analysis, broad stroke, proposal in development, proposal delivered / follow-up. So this is kind of the visual column view. You get other views up here. This one is very similar. What does it do? Oh, it gets rid of the company name, so it's a little more condensed. This is a text view. So depending on your preferred view, you can choose which owners to view. You know, just yours or all. Again, this is a date range. Be careful of this little thing. What this does is limits your view to only deals whose close date falls within that range. If this thing's turned on, you may get confused and go, what the hell? I know we have more deals going on. So you can turn that off. All right.
Total per stage. You know, something like knowing.
Yeah, I'll get into there is some reporting here.
Oh, usually.
We'll get to,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So we've got an early deal here, and I thought I had something in here. Oh, this is mine, so I'm going to play with it. So this is that needs analysis. So let's say Taryn calls and says, you know what, I need a broad stroke proposal, and I, deliver it to her. I can then go here and click this. I can say, you know what, she's now committed to a $5,000 website. She actually doesn't need it until end of first quarter. It's still my deal. We've moved beyond needs. It's broad stroke. We have a probability to close assigned to this stage of 50%. I could go in and say that this deal is essentially going to do it. So I'm going to up this. Still open. I could log a note here if I wanted. A little note here. So again, this is like an opportunity-based kind of similar note that we were making for contacts. Same thing. I could assign tasks around this opportunity. Follow up with her, by end of the year, whatever. In the same way that you can have custom fields for leads, you can have custom fields for opportunities.
When you set tasks up here, is there a master area that you can see all the tasks that you set up, or is that just going to come up based on when you set it?
Good question. I don't know. I'll add SharpSpring and find it out. I mean, you can do I didn't show it, but in Contact Manager, you can export your entire database to CSV. It may capture it in that, but then granted, you get this huge Excel file. You got to go slice and dice and filter and view.
Yeah.
So it's not as efficient as what.
No, that's what we have today.
Yeah. You'd rather say, show me everybody's tasks for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
I'll find out. And if not, I mean, they're open to, like, hey, we'll put in a feature request for that and get to it. So yeah, so you pull this opportunity up. A couple of things, you make whatever changes you need. You can save it. A couple of things that are different here that you'll see. There's a contacts tab. So if I had, right now she's our only contact at Dorn Mayhew in our database. But if others were there, I could go, actually, let me see if somebody else was in here, I could add them to this account. Communication will track official, like email messaging and activities coming out of SharpSpring to this person. It's not the email syncing stuff. It's more the high-level emails that we're sending. Just kind of a different view on it from here. Notes is, to be honest, this is a little redundant to, like, I don't know, the status. I've asked our guys, what are they, who uses what? I don't get real clear answers. But because there's this little status thing, and then you could do the same thing here. And then I can save it here. So once an op is created, you get access to these other tabs, and you can move it through the pipeline. We created opportunity fields, but we're not really populating them with anything. So then I can save that. And now if I close this out, and I go back, you can see this opportunity is now moved to the broad stroke delivered stage. So this is kind of how you move stuff through. Like at Biznet, we have a Monday call every Monday at 9 a.m. and just work through this thing. We go kind of right to left, bottom to top. The idea being these are the hotter deals.
It's a good one, though. I mean, do you have, in a meeting like that, you probably want to report or be looking at who's like ready to close, who's in the infant stages, who's in the middle.
We tend to be a little informal. It's like 4 of us get on the call, somebody's in front of their laptop just talks through it. Hey, what's up with this deal? You know, sometimes we'll log notes and comments that arise in the call if the owner hasn't done that. But you can, if you go over here from pipeline and click export to CSV, while that's doing that, you can see up here we've got a couple of different pipelines. Like we have a general sales pipeline. We've got a pipeline for our marketing automation only stuff. And then this is actually kind of like a...
Then we can create more. Then
yeah, like if you go to...
okay.
If you click Edit Pipeline Stages, it'll take you to what is really an administrative section. First, I want to open this before I forget about it.
So you can create one for inbound marketing, for example.
Yeah. Like one of our business development guys actually has a pre-pipeline pipeline. He just logs his stuff, like not on the official pipeline yet, but he uses it to keep track of, you know, who hasn't called me back or who's close or whatever. So this is an export of all the data in our pipeline. You get the opportunity name, you know, you get the op ID, the names, the deal stage. This is a text version of the deal stage. That's the numeric number for the owner ID. That's the owner's name, email, originating lead ID, lead name, email, company. So you get a whole bunch of stuff here. Amount, probability, a description of what it is, expected value, whether it's won or lost, close date, last activity, so all kinds of stuff here. So this is actually the be-all, end-all, most robust export out report. If we go back to SharpSpring, there are some, you can see lost deals if you wanted a quick view on those without having to sort and filter. And again, I actually have to expand my date range. Oh, there you go. So within that time frame, these are deals that have been lost. Conversely, if I want to see deals that were won, you know, these would all be part of that master report, but it's a quick shorthand view into them. Let me go back and talk about editing pipelines. So if I go to Edit Pipeline Stages, like I said, I'm actually bumped over to that familiar view I would get from going to Settings. And this is down here, Opportunity Stages. So I click that. I see tabs for each of my different pipelines, and then down here I see each of my stages. If I want to edit a stage, I can just edit it here and save it. Or I want to edit the default probability for a stage, I can do that. I want to delete it, I would click this. If you delete a stage, you'll get prompted as to what you want to do with the opportunities that are at that stage. You know, you have to move them somewhere. It'll prompt you. If you're either cleaning up your pipeline, I got a client do that this morning. Yeah, I don't know, 6 stages. They want to get rid of one. So they took all those and moved them to a different stage. If you want to add a new stage, you just hit pipeline stage, give it a name, select which pipeline it assigns to, what the default probability is, give it a description. I apologize, I'm not 100% sure what this thing exactly does, sales automation policy, and whether it automatically, I got to find out what that does. You know, if it's got an official mechanism that like alerts you. We have most.
It's going to set how many calls.
Yeah, what I don't know is if, like, does that mean it's going to ping you every 10 days? Say, hey, dude, call these people. If you want to move a pipeline around, you can literally just click on it and drag it. If you want to edit a different pipeline, you just bump over to the pipeline. If you want to add a new pipeline, you click New Pipeline and name it, and then go add stages to it. you know, and then when you go to create opportunities, you'll get prompted to which pipeline you want to add it to, and what stage you want to add it to. So yeah, so you can get to all this. It's over here in the settings area, but you can also get to it with a quick link from over here under pipeline. All right, some of the reports that are in here. Ops 1, it's a listing of opportunities that have been won. You know, it's pretty straightforward. You set a date, you know, you set a date range. It'll list, you know, what's been won, and you know, sometimes some of their screens they have an apply button, and others they don't. It just automatically takes effect. So if you're like I was just there, like what the heck? Look for that apply button.
So here, filter by.
Yeah. So right now this is I'm showing all reps, so all ops that have been won by the sales pipeline. I'm sorting by opportunity name, and it's this date range.
So this is where you get that high.
Yeah. The somewhat frustrating part is there's not like a export this to CSV feature. There's a, I don't know if there's one here.
Oh, there's no.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. But this is kind of a summary report, but yeah, you'd almost have to take a screenshot or copy paste and deal with that mess. But all of this stuff theoretically is in the pipeline export. You just have to filter on is one. You know, there was that one column in the CSV that we exported that identifies that was one. So you would just, if you set your date range to what I did here, export it out of the pipeline and sort it on one, all 122 of these should show up in there. Accounts. Each time you create an opportunity, SharpSpring will create an account, as we saw with the Caterpillar. And then the account is where you can actually store additional information about the company that you can't store within a contact screen. So you get the account name. We've identified who owns this account from our side. We can identify their industry, their revenue, number of employees, year started, you know, some company background, their website, phone number, fax number. Anybody still fax? This is where you can add contacts to this account. So you could search for a named individual. You can search on company too. You know, so if I'm like, hey, Ed's a colleague of Sherry, and they're both part of the same account, and so I could go add him. These are the opportunities associated to this account. So this one that Jim created is listed here. This is billing address, shipping address. As you can with opportunities and contacts, you can create custom account fields. So if there's information not here that's default that you would want to capture, I'll show you in a little bit how to do custom fields. And then same thing, these are just notes about the account. You can create a brand new account if you wanted to. You know, apps that are separate from, what you call them, separate from an opportunity, and then you can go assign contacts to it and fill this all out. Usually what will happen is when you go create an opportunity, again, using email domain name as the identifier, SharpSpring will recognize, hey, you got 5 people part of this. Do you want to assign this person to that account? You can do it at that stage too. So really that's not really an account export feature either. Well, Maybe I'll prove myself wrong here. I don't use the sales features as much as I do the other stuff, so I get a little rusty on, especially the pipeline stuff. Oh, you can export your list of accounts. You can export that to a CSV. Any questions so far? You want to take a little break? I'm almost, actually the break, we call for a break once I'm done with this report section. So we're a little ahead of schedule. Maybe I'll show you these reports and then we'll take a quick break. These reports are kind of graphical, nice looking, visual. You can select different report types: conversion report, pipeline report, performance projection, activity. Maybe the report you were asking me about, Craig.
Pipeline report or activity.
Yeah, this is the follow-up report. Well, let me go. Okay, you want to go to activity? Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay. And again, you get similar filtering: which pipeline, which rep, which stage. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So this is an activity report, what's happened over this time frame on these opportunities. Yeah, it exports to PDF, but not really to an Excel database style.
Right, so there's not a open activity of $600,000.
You can do expected value. Yeah, it kind of buries the value in there. Now, I'll point out something that, I don't know, seems a little odd to me about SharpSpring. You see this EV value here? This is SharpSpring's determination as to expected value, and it's based upon a factor of what's the total value of this project, multiplied by its probability, and then it comes up with this, which, yeah, the deal's either going to close or not. This thing's either worth 100 or it's worth nothing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where I think, like your probability your stages and the probabilities, you better have to set them all to 100. And then, because it uses that value in this report. So everything, the expected value will show up as the 100% of whatever the total value is.
Go back to the pipeline.
So yeah, the most robust export for all this sales activity is that export to CVS here. So contacts is where you manage your individual people. Contact managers where they're stored. Visitor ID is what you see when you click through that email, or you can even come here and look at visitor ID if you want. Whoops. You can drill right into it. Import tool is what you use if you've got a big list and you want to import it. This import tool is really only used for contacts. There's another feature in here, a CRM migration tool, that you can use to import opportunities, campaigns, other stuff from a different CRM. And then, yeah, sales is where your pipeline is, your reporting on opportunities won, your accounts. So that's all the happy sales stuff, or sales-oriented stuff. So, with that said, let's take a break.
All right.
anything from the CSVs and the council. And the county part.
You guys using Outlook 365?
No,
We
You had that.
same problem.
good on but so I exported it, and I can open it as a CSV, and it's fine. So I would expect to put name there or something, so whatever. It says uploading, and I can go back and
We had to have, I actually had to have Jerry or the guys at Biznet modify my CSV file
Where's
in
that
order
CSV
to.
at? Open it in Notepad.
Oh,
Well, let's do this. Go to export and save it out.
I've done a save as, and I did the save as. I did it as a CSV, and I did a CSV DOS.
Yeah, usually that CSV column is one is claims and other one.
Yeah. That's why I called
Yeah, that's two bits. Code fixing.
So
Right click on it and then,
yeah, I've got another, yeah.
save it as a pure text file. You still go CSV.
Also, oh yeah, sure, of course.
Because Craig's right, he did have an issue and bumped it over the
Yeah, that's the
chart screen.
that one is back up there with yeah, I think most a lot of things are on that. That's all. Okay. It seems like the community, I really like
Think Outlook 365, I don't know, encoding their CSV, some kind of quirky
So
way.
now some of the people that are in here, Craig must have uploaded them already, so now.
He had trouble, so yeah,
So now I'm gonna put my contacts in here, so some of them I can duplicate, duplicate them, or is it smart enough?
if somebody's already in there with the same email address, that's what you're gonna have to tell instruction what you want to do. It's two essentially the same
Okay,
records.
ignore.
So you might want to create a new user, just go ahead.
Alright.
Bring it open, you want all the time to use, it doesn't matter right now.
Right now, it doesn't matter.
So for title, go over and start with the title and that's
Click share.
Yeah. So if you don't want my whole just don't do it again. You don't want to. SharpString doesn't really have a department feature, but that's what you can turn that into a custom field.
Yeah. At this point, I feel like we have to develop a procedure
There's a lot of my home areas that have been
and to try to bring the content
Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So it's saying 8 people in that list or enough to duplicate.
Okay. And 200, 200 else is supposed to do it.
Right, but it'll still bring them in.
Content.
Okay, so some of these you don't have, so can I delete the ones?
What we would probably want to do in that case is go generate a list that says all leads who have empty email address. Generate those into a separate list, and then just delete them using that list.
Well, okay, right, do you have the search bar?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It has 0.
And how would I?
Now it has something, but we
That's where we're going to get
sure.
yeah.
So we can
Go
automation.
to automation.
More value.
Add a new list.
Oh,
So
yeah.
call it
Main application.
without email, or without email, or whatever. And then make a rule-based list. We scroll down.
Yeah.
Add the trigger filter. Click on that. Say head click here.
So this is but it's normal.
Yeah.
It can
Click email.
drive email.
And then
Start giving it, right? Yeah. That's what it was with it.
Right.
Yeah.
that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, actually it was. And then say add new list. And click change.
We are going to change it. Well,
Delete.
at this point, one of the we can
Say
send
add
them
trigger.
tomorrow. Yeah. By yeah. Because I have it's one so maybe we instead sending them I'm not sure if maybe some of them are medical, some of them are well, so this is actually part of the totally process, right?
No, yeah, to do a sample of that.
To help us with that. Yeah.
Now what you would want to do is scroll up
Got it, some of it.
to the option
But
on the very bottom. Delete all the user list.
Yeah.
I'm just going to delete this list and it's going to blast everybody in that list out of your contact.
And at the stage, just before launch, we'll take
I just put my reason, and 600 and some, and anything you find with your email, and then bunch of it, no email, no. And the 3 times number list, it just said, going to the out of here, there's no email, and then a bunch of stuff.
The automation stuff is where the real power is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Now, let's say 3 weeks from now you realize some of those custom fields you've been doing across, you want to add to those records, you would take that same list, do a re-import, add it to your existing list, say, bring in only new information, pick those fields you want, and then we'll go append that stuff.
Okay, that's fine.
You know, what I would do in that case if I was you, I would go take that original list of yours and exclude people who didn't have email. It saves you
Right.
that
Oh,
extra
instead
step.
of having it, yeah, which that would be easy to do.
Nice up up front. Just radiant on the outside walls, so it's easier if I can have that.
Are you kidding? So the radiators are kicking?
We've got all of our thermostats turned all the way down, and it's just, well, I think it was last Monday, it was hot, and then by Friday, all of us had cold front. It just can't level itself out.
Nice.
But that's my experience with boilers, because they're unpredictable. So whatever they feel like doing, they're going to do.
I'm just telling you.
Well, they're not that. Alright.
What are like your trusting and one so that's one. reporting stuff. Right. Good. Yeah. Everything in place will change the transmission structure. Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of the initial area. We got one point. Yeah.
And one project, and how we all just have to.
Yeah, I use it.
An email.
Sure.
And how,
You would be one of them.
That was the end.
Yeah,
whatever we're still here.
Yeah.
And
That was,
But I feel like general blocks, the rest of us will have something like sales manager or customer manager level.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's not not a traditional, company with
right.
many people stuff with it. This was for us to see what's happening around. And that's because they sit down and they only have features around you do that.
Yeah. It's not really restricted. That's not an end at all. It's just
That's why.
Yeah. That's on.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Going to February, March, and fall, I'm off and we actually try to
Some sparkling cranberry cherry juice. Beer in the fridge and back. I think there is some in the freezer. So when Craig stands up, does that mean he's engaged or he's about to walk out?
He's got to stay awake. He's thinking. He's got to stay awake. And
his gears are turning.
I move. I have to move.
He's a fast thinker on speed.
All right, so everything we covered, these were really the two menus that, like I said, if you turn somebody's permissions to like salesperson, that's really what they would see and what they would work in. This other stuff we're going to talk about, automation is very powerful. There's no way we can cover everything about it in one session here, but I think you guys can get an exposure to it and understand what it can and can't do. It's a lot of experimentation. There's some basic stuff that you do, basic functions and features. We'll talk a little bit about creating an email. Normally, some of the exercises we do, we would like make you guys actually go create an email. What we do normally do is pair people up, and then we say send it to your partner, and then your partner gets it. Then they click through, and then we go look at their life of the lead. Then they fill out a form, and then there's like in the end a personalized email that goes to you that says hello with a custom variable that inserts your name and inserts your colored team. We make you go back and fill that form and say my partner is Dragos and my color is white, and then so you go, oh, I get it, because you can do that in the emailing. What you can do is send an email that says based on what I know about you or what you've done. That way I'm not blasting all of you guys. And if I'm an electrical wholesaler and you're interested in conduit and you're interested in plugs, I want to send you an email about conduits and you about plugs and not mix the two and not, you know what I mean? So I can look at that activity. What I would want to do is probably build some custom fields that capture that about you, and then use that to create a list that says, if visited website, if, visited this page, if this custom field, send this email. Or you can get really crazy inserting dynamic content. We're starting to do that a little bit. We haven't really dove in really deep on that, but there's a way based on variables, so you can compose one email, and then really it's just a bunch of if-then statements.
So you can even say, like, if they visited this page, send them this email?
Yeah. Some of that stuff you actually have to go create lists and then trigger the email off the list, because some of the dynamicism in the emails isn't that complex yet, but yeah, conceptually you can do that. All right, what I'm going to do first, all right, I'm going to go in this order. So we talked about, again, this is kind of a life cycle of an MA client.
you add contacts, right? Got to get people in there. You got to create opportunities off them. You got to manage your pipeline. The first thing, we've already got tracking code on the site. That's kind of a no-brainer thing we do when we first sign you up. What you really want to do in this whole digital marketing ecology system is create a form. And then what you do is you put that form on the website, and as we've talked, somebody fills it out, boom, we've captured their info. So form creation takes place over here under the content. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to add a new form. Let's call it November 17th form. 99% of the time we create Sharp Spring forms. We don't really bother with native forms. You can import third-party forms. For guaranteed continuity, we say use a Sharp Spring form. This is where, as you can see, you can select what happens when somebody fills this form out. I don't know, you might want to put a form on your website where people can tell you to go fly a kite and get lost, in which case you probably want them to be unqualified leads. But usually you're putting forms on your website to attract and gather people. So by default, SharpSpring says they're going to be qualified leads. You could reassign them if you wanted. So I'm going to go create this. First thing I get presented with is the Fields tab, but I'm actually going to bump back to here. General, this is where I can name the form. This is where, if after people complete the form, I want to send them to a specific thank you page, I could designate that. So let's say you created a beautiful web page on your, web page on your site, and you want to direct people there. You could just type that in. Now granted, I have to have that page built somewhere. Otherwise, SharpSpring's not going to go build it for me. But upon a submit, it'll take people to that page. What happens a lot of times, you'll use this for if you've got a white paper. So you would build a form. It says fill this out and get our white paper. After they fill it out, you want to take them to a page that has some text and then a button that says download our white paper. And the white paper is probably a PDF, and then they click it and download it. Saves you from having to email it back to them.
Or a video or anything you have.
Whatever you want, yeah. All right, click here to read this blog post. This is what gated content is, right? Nobody can get to it unless they fill out a form. This is a hidden page, not tracked by Google. Nobody knows about it unless they fill out that form and they're taken. So that's what that does. These are some things, if you got a form and you want to return the data from the form back to the web page to submit data to my thank you page, we do that. E-commerce sites do that or stuff. This was your order today. This is what you filled out. Kind of reconfirms to somebody. Show thank you page within iframe is just a different way to embed a thank you page. Again, this is that setting we made initially. How do we want to assign people to fill out this form? So you can fill all this stuff out. No, I don't have any fields, so I can't do it. Field is where you build the form, what we all know is form. Under fields, you get your pick of all the default SharpSpring fields. So most forms are going to have, what are they going to have? First name. Stuff jumps around if you select them. An email, company, whatever you want, right? You can designate whether you want these fields required or not. Since we're in digital marketing, we're going to make email required. That's all we really need. This other stuff would be nice to know. In addition, if you have created custom fields, you have the option to show those. And when you click the little custom field, so we have all this other stuff that we have at our disposal. And actually, I'm in the, it's not a Biznet instance. So we have all kinds of crazy fields we've used throughout the last year and a half. When we host events, or like we had a Biznet turn 21 last week. So we had an event, we invited people, and then, we have this, are you coming, what are your comments? So you can embed all of that into the form. First, you have to create the custom fields, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So you could
I'll go down and, you know, what's your birthday? This little selection up here, ask how did you hear about us at the end. By default, SharpSpring will add that. It's a little pre-built mechanism that they put at the bottom of the form. It helps you track, you know, people wanting to info. Oh, I heard about you on TV or radio. Sometimes that stuff's unreliable. People will claim they heard about you on the radio, and in fact, they saw your billboard. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of a hit and miss thing. I tend to deactivate that. It's a little kind of clumsy. This GoToWebinar thing we have activated because if you use GoToWebinar, you can have it talk to SharpSpring forms. And we use that so when we invite people to a webinar and they register, we know about it in SharpSpring. And then GoToWebinar will keep track of it. They actually signed up and attended. So we know that drop off. Alyssa's more, I mean, she handles all of that. Elements are just different HTML elements you can insert. So you could have a form, you know, as opposed to it being just a long-running list of fields, you can kind of section it off, you know, with headings or ruled lines or other text. You know, so you might have a form that's got 4 fields that are all required, and then down below you have some optional stuff, and you're like, I want to make sure people know it's optional. You can insert a little text element. You know, this isn't the appropriate place where I put it. I might put it down here. You know. You know, so that would be actually part of the form, little help descriptive text. You know, you can put a header down there too. Styles is where you can stylize the form a little bit. Some of this stuff gets over my head. Most of our developers do this. If anybody knows anything about CSS, cascading style sheets, it's what dictates, you know, what a web page looks like, what font, what color, spacing, layout, all that stuff. Usually what will happen is when you create a form and it comes out of SharpSpring, it's pretty plain Jane. A lot of times we'll go out to a client website, look at their style sheets, pick up those styles and apply them here. That way there's consistency. You could add a style sheet if you wanted. You could reference an external style sheet. The one thing you can do as a layperson, if you want to, you don't like this default view of the button, you can create your own button here. So you just get some, hey, you know, what color and how wide do I, down here shows you the preview. You know, do I want a big, you know, big yellow one? So if you like to be creative, you can have a little bit of fun here. You can also, you know, control what appears on the button. So that's how you build the form. Over here in fields, I'm not going to go there yet, but if we want to create a custom field, because we realized, oh man, I didn't create that custom field yet, and it's not in my pick list, you could click here. I'm going to go there in a moment. But these are the basics. You know, you pick your fields, what order you want them in, are they required or not. You build them out in the form, you stylize it a bit. Again, over on the general, you identify if you want somebody to go to a separate thank you page, and then you save your changes. The first time you create a form then, well actually, my bad. Once we've created the form, we can preview it if we want. You know, again, this is the base, pretty plain Jane, not styled at all, it's kind of ugly. That's where style sheets would come in and let you say, hey, you know what, I only want my fields half width, or I want more spacing. But then to get the form on a website, I don't know that any of you guys would be doing this, but you go to this embed code view, and all of this code right here is what you capture, and then like we actually have, if I go out to SharpSpring or the Bootcamp site, you know, you grab that embed code, you put it on the web page, and lo and behold, the form appears. So that's what's going on among the web people and the marketing people. Create a form in SharpSpring. Now anybody who fills out this form gets dumped into the database because this is a SharpSpring-based form. So, you know, J. Frey would get added to, in this case, it would be the Bootcamp database, and become part of it. The interesting thing
The way to know if a website you're visiting is kind of snooping on you is if you go back to it and it pre-fills fields with your information, you know they've dropped a cookie on you and they know about you because they're pre-filling. Because part of what you can do with marketing automation is there's a tactic called progressive profiling where, like, we're going to do this first blast for you. We're probably going to ask people name, rank, serial number. I don't want to overburden you. If we do another campaign down the line, what we may do, we could set a variable that would say, if somebody's back for like the third time, let's say, downloading our white papers, let's ask them for company name and what are you in the market for and what's your purchase time frame. And if they're coming back that much, they got to be interested. It's a little tit for tat here. We've been giving them free stuff 3 times. You may have experienced that yourself. Sometimes when you go to websites, if you're a return visitor, they start to get a little more information out of you. So you can do some of that. What you do in that case is build a deeper form, and then we set some workflows and tasks that say, if visited this page 3 times, or if downloaded these 3 white papers. That's where you can get a little crazy with some of the automation on the workflows. So that's form building. This is the embed code. You could go build 100 forms, never grab this code because, your website's in development. It's not due out for 6 months, and then come back 6 months later and grab all this stuff. You can pre-build these. This stuff kind of sets the width and height. So that's basic form building. Custom fields. As you saw, we can get to it via this little click here, create custom field. It's also one of the settings. You know what? I'm going back over to my Bootcamp because I don't want to do anything stupid here. Yeah. Maybe I'll just stay here. I don't know if it's our internet on my ancient laptop. All right, I'm going to stay here. Under settings, there's custom fields over here. And if you hit that, you get this custom field manager. And what you want to do is add a field. Anybody got any good stories? These are all ones we've built, but if you go to add a field, this is where you get to pick, is this a lead field, an opportunity field, or an account field? And depending on what you appear will dictate where, or what you choose dictates where it appears. If we create a lead field, that'll appear in Contact Manager. If you create an account field, it only appears in the account view screen, and opportunity fields only appear. It kind of helps you manage, especially if you got a good sized quantity of custom fields. We're going to create a lead field. Depending on your HTML skill and otherwise, this can get a little convoluted too, but essentially you would name it. You pick the field type. If I just want somebody to type text in, I can pick a text input. Text area is a little bigger. If I want to have a drop-down selection, it's like a pick list, I can pick that type, and then what you would do is fill in what you want your variables to be. Country will automatically populate for the list of countries. You don't have to go enter them all. Same thing with states. It'll auto-populate alphabetically with the 50 states. Saves you that grief. Ones that get used a lot tend to be date picker, time picker. Checkbox group and radio group. A radio group is, you've probably seen them, if you have a list of items and have little radio buttons, the round ones. Radio buttons, you can only select one. Checkbox means you can select multiple. So, this would be, what's your income range? You're only going to have one range. This is, tell us which features of our products and services you like the best. Somebody could select,
multiple. So that's the difference. And then all you have to do really is literally, enter what you want the options to be. Add a new one. And then these will appear as actually part of the form. So then you create the field. And then what we would do is have to go back to that original form and add this field to it. So that's how custom fields are populated. I'm going to point out one thing about these. I'm going to pull up one of these other ones. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to edit this field. Some of these options here, visible in Contact Manager is a setting that means you want this field to be visible when you go view a contact. So you can create custom fields that you capture, but you don't necessarily want them to be seen out in Contact Manager because you want it to get cluttered up. You could turn that off and it wouldn't be viewable. Usually if they're lead fields, you want to see them out in Contact Manager. Available when creating forms, you want to make sure that is selected if you intend to put it on a form. Email merge variables. This is if you potentially want to use this to dynamically insert into emails. And then editable in Contact Manager. By default, I tend to turn all these on. There's been too many times where I've gone on to do something like, damn it, I didn't checkbox that for that form or that field. But like here's an example of for our 21st birthday party. We had a number of guest custom fields, and we said, how many people are attending? Just me, +1, +2, +3. And then we were storing that in our Contact Manager to get a sense of how many people are attending. What is this? Oh, that's a drop-down select. Okay. The difference between like a drop-down select is you only see one little field, and then when you click it, the accordion opens. These other ones, all those options are there. So that's forms. So you put a form out on your website, you create a form, you put it out on your website, people come and fill it out. Then what you're most likely going to do is compose emails to then send out to those people based upon what you've gathered, from the form. The email tools are under here, under the Content Manager. There's two components, actually three. Email and email templates. SharpSpring ships with a pretty robust set of mobile-friendly, responsive design templates. Let me get this to load up. Part of the challenge in the email world these days is there's no guarantee what people are reading your email on. It could be Outlook, could be Gmail, could be Comcast, could be a mobile device, could be Mac, could be PC.
Do you care?
If you care about how it looks, that's where responsive design comes into play. What happens is it's hard to accommodate all of those different platforms and be creative and cool and funny. I mean, emailing's gotten to the point where it's literally an image, text, image, text.
Yeah, it's got Flash or something.
It's got Flash, or if you're trying to wrap text around a cool graphic, it might look good in 4 out of the 5 platforms, but then you're like, yeah. Yeah. So if you're ever wondering, man, email's gotten kind of plain and ugly, and they all look the same, that's why. Because what happens a lot of times, you'll compose an email that, like an Outlook might, have a graphic here and then have some text, and then have a graphic here and more text. And what happens in the mobile world, that graphic goes there, that text goes there, that graphic goes there, and that text goes there. So it gets stacked. So a lot of people are, what the hell, I'm just going to put a bigger graphic and stack everything. And then there's underlying code in these emails that does like a media inquiry, they call it, which is really device detection. I'm being viewed on an Android phone. Scale the images down, stack the text so it looks readable. I'm on a desktop browser. I got more space. I'll display myself a little differently. So We have a whole bunch of crap in here, but when you guys open a brand new instance, you'll see SharpSpring templates. There's 34 of them. They're all down here. They kind of give them names that are, I think, pretty good descriptions of kind of the look and feel of the email. So like this one's a Hero 2 column. If you click on this little gear, you can see a preview of it. And so that one is what it would look like. So if you're like, yeah, man, we're going to blast out a big header image and have 2 secondary stories with images, yeah, we like this template. What you can do is you would go here and you actually click this, create email, and it'll ask you to name it. I want to make it available in Contact Net. This is another button by default. I turn it on anytime it's presented to me. I'll explain, especially in the case of emails, why. So I'm going to add this email. Now I'm thrown over to the email editor with that template that I picked as the basis. There's really, over here on the left side, there's really only 2 tabs that matter unless you're like a really hardcore CSS developer. This first one is where you identify the subject of the email, who it's from in terms of the company name, the from email. By default, it'll insert your email that you're logged in with. You can change it. You know, like a lot of companies will have a, you know, standard catch-all email response that they use. Actually, let's say in this case I do want it to come from me. By default, SharpSpring would send replies to this email to me, but let's say I want the replies to go elsewhere. I can change that. A couple of things to point out down here. Can send to multiple times to one person. By default, SharpSpring will not send the same email to an individual more than once. You know, it's a protection against canned spam and annoying people and all that. If, however, you want to send a certain email to somebody multiple times, you can turn that on here. Most often you use that during testing. We'll create a test list of 3 users here. And while we're composing and sending emails out, we'll just send them to that same list all the time. And we'll turn that on. That way I can get it multiple times, Kevin can. And then once it's approved, we'll turn that off and send to the master list. Make available in Contact Manager. Like I said, there's a feature in here called Smart Email, whereby, let's say you guys take the time to compose a series of emails that are kind of standardized boilerplate templated emails that you send to people, I don't know, if you see them at a show or something. You can compose the emails in here, and then rather than going in here and sending to a list of 500 people, you could be out in Contact Manager, use this feature called Send Smart Email, whereby I could pull Craig out of my database, click Send Smart Email. I could send them that thank you email. It would automatically insert my information in the from, you know, and kind of personalizes it that way, but I'm taking advantage of that boilerplate templated email that I built. And the advantage is that then shows up, you know, all these places we looked at, Life of the Lead and other ones. It would show you got it. It would show if you click through it. So it's a way really to give salespeople, you know, you can have your marketing team compose some really nice emails, and then your sales team doesn't have to go copy paste do all that BS. When we go back to contacts, I'll show. But yeah, you just say send smart email, and it's like a one-off. But to do that, you have to make it available in Contact Manager. This checkbox here, send from lead owner when sending from automation engine. In Contact Manager, if you recall, we have the ability to assign leads and contacts to particular owners. What we can also do from here then is, let's say I had a list, MCM's got a list of 500 people, Craig owns 250, Mike owns 250 of them. We've got them all in one big list though. I don't want to go create 2 lists. What I can do is checkbox this, and what it'll do, SharpSpring will go take the email, go look at the list, go, oh, Craig's the lead owner? I'm going to insert Craig's name and Craig's email address. Oh, Mike's the lead owner on this one? So it'll rifle through your whole list. So your guys will get the same email,
So it's like, oh, I got an email from Craig today. Oh, I got an email from Mike today.
They said the same thing. It's crazy.
But studies show people, I mean, a high propensity, open emails from individuals versus companies. You know, an email coming from you to somebody is more personalized and more inclined to open it than an email from, you know, MCM. You know, what's behind it? I am all marketing BS. Oh, Mike's emailing me. And we do that with Kevin's stuff. Yeah, it's astounding how much higher the open rate is.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be the right message. You know, you don't necessarily want to be, because you don't want to compromise your relationship. So if it's like a pure marketing, branding blast, maybe you do want it coming from MCM. You don't want it coming from you, because otherwise people start to get those and go, you know, you're sending me emails I don't want.
And there was one that I honestly thought it was legitimately from him to me. It was, you know, hey Mike, we're going to get this thing. Thought you might want to take a look at it and check it out.
And you can compose those. I'll show you. You can compose those kind of seemingly it came from Kevin via Outlook, and it really came from here. So this is the editor. Again, you know, is anybody here going to really dive in and create these, or you might?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, you've got exposure to WYSIWYG HTML editors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I've used.
Yeah. So this, you know, when you hover over an editable area, these little icons pop up. You click the pencil icon. It loads this section. You know, you would go change your text. You know, you would delete this. You go, you know, you either have to upload an image or have it pre-uploaded, or, you know, in the process of creating the email, you go pick your image, you insert it, you know, you do all that happy stuff you do. You know, you create your links, all that stuff. You know, and then you would save it. Done. We can save changes.
And this is a template now, right?
This is no longer a template. This is now an individual email based off a template.
Well, you can save it to us in your library, right?
Yes. Yeah, it'll get dumped out to our email library. You can compose emails and then save them as templates if you want it. Most of the times what we do is once we get a nice email format that we like, we don't convert it to a template. We just replicate it the next time out.
Oh, so you just put the old email and just say.
Yeah, just say create a copy and call it the November version. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's easy for like a newsletter or anything.
Yeah, like what we're probably going to do is take that stuff you sent me and pick one of these templates that we think works and drop in your logo and some colors. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
You guys
yeah.
A couple of things worth pointing out here. Send a preview email is a way to test this email and quickly send it to yourself. By default, it'll drop in your email address here. You could type in, copy, paste in, you know, whatever other emails you want to send, or people you want to send to. What it does is just sends a quick version of this email. The sender in the pop-up preview, or in the send a preview version, the sender is going to appear as Biznet Digital because we're the master owner of all your accounts. So in that way, it can be a little confusing, especially if you're sending previews to clients. They're like, wait a minute, you know, not so much for you guys, but you know, if I said, hey, preview this, and you're like, wait, it's coming from Biznet Digital, not from Michigan Custom. But it's a better way to it's a better way to test and preview than this pop-up preview. This thing is here, but not in any real way bears any resemblance to reality. It's a nice way to look at something outside of the editor, but I wouldn't trust it for validity. So really, pop-up preview is what or preview email is what we use most often. Then what we'll do is say, all right, I really want to test this as if it's going to go to the ultimate audience. That's where you would use send email to a list, and somewhere in here we probably have a test list. But you know, we would create a list, and I would have just a few people in it. And now I'm actually sending the email as if it was going to go out the day it goes out. The sender would be Stanislaw Consulting, you know. It would have the can spam unsubscribe feature in the bottom. It's the email as it's going to go out. And then when you sign off on it, you would then come back in, you know, go to send email to a list. You would then pick your actual list. You can, when it comes time, you're controlling the send time, you can either say as soon as possible, in which case it gets added to the queue and usually it's sent within 10 or 15 minutes. Or you can designate a specific time, date and time. This gives you the other option too to send to everyone on the list, even those who've already received it. But sometimes you'll have a test list and those people are also part of your master list, so they could then get it again. And then you would hit schedule email and it'll get added to the queue as appropriate. Before you would do all that though, there's another feature in here called render tests. And this is where there's a platform SharpSpring uses. That kind of sends this email out and renders back to you what it would look like in two different mobile platforms and 3 different email clients. Sometimes this can take a little bit of time to run. You can actually close this down and come back to it. It'll run in the background. But yeah, it's recommended you do this too. And then if you click, it'll give you a bigger view. So somebody on an Android, that crappy little email we just composed would look like that. Somebody on Google Chrome, it would look like that. Somebody on an iPhone, it looks like that. Outlook tends to be the trickiest, the wonkiest, especially Outlook 2010. But this gives you a view. I mean, if you really want to be sure, the best thing you do is like create a test list and say, you're going to be my Android user, you're going to be my iPhone, you're going to be, I know you use Outlook, I've got a Gmail account, send it to everybody and say, hey, can you validate it for me? Because usually what will happen is sometimes images that you centered are now left or right, especially in Outlook, or you might get funny text breaks once in a while. But yeah, it's usually related to the alignment of images and text. So that's really creating emails. You know, use a template if you want. If you've got an existing email, like I'm going to pull up. We do a weekly called Digital Marketing Minute. What's going on today? And literally what we do is open last month's or last week's and copy it over. Yeah, so if I go down here. You know, I mean, this one was sent in March. But what I could do is click on here and say copy email. Make sure you delete all these. You know, I get the chance upon creating it to change the subject line. Can control some of those variables. I create a copy. Now, you know, what is essentially this template we built, I can now go in and edit and modify it. But again, too, you can, if you're a hardcore coder, there's this view code feature here that gives you access to all the underlying CSS and HTML. So I don't know what your CSS, HTML skills are, but
Minimal.
Yeah.
But,
This is how I edit emails now.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
This is what I was referring to, that those media queries, like just for the heck of it, that little block there is telling it, here's what you do when you're opened on a mobile device. You know, your maximum width is now this, and blah, 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 blah. But yeah. So if you want to have at it, you can have at it there. Another thing you can do in here, if you are using a different email platform and you've got HTML-based emails, you can literally go in, copy the code, come over to here, You can either create a blank email, go to code view, and then plop that code in, and you're going to have that same layout. You know, if you've already taken the time to invest in design. So yeah, it's pretty powerful. You can segment your emails by folders, which is highly recommended. You know, ours tend to be theme-based. It's usually not this slow, believe me. I'd have no hair if it was. Sharp Spring, this is a common, what's the term I'm looking for? A common approach Sharp Spring uses for moving things to folders. If you click on here, this little pop-up will appear, and this move to folder appears, and that's how you move stuff. I mean, it might look like, oh, I can just drag and drop. It really doesn't do that. But like if you created a list and you want to move it to a different folder, this is a standard convention. That's what the term I was going to do. If you want to move a list or a workflow or a task or an email, this is what you would do. Like select it, say move to folder, go pick the folder. If it doesn't yet exist, you create the folder. And then it'll create the folder, put the file there, or whatever file there, and then you're good to go. And then you click it and it'll open up. But yeah, it's kind of got a look and feel like, oh, I'll just click on that and move it around, and like, oh, it's not moving. Email tests, if you want to do A/B testing, this is where you would do it. A/B testing being, you know, let's say you were wondering which subject line would work best, or my audience like big text-based emails versus graphical ones, or I don't know, whatever. You can A/B test whatever you want. But you can use this A/B test feature to actually take a list of 1,000 people, create a list, or create the test, pick the list, pick the 2 emails you want to test, and it'll handle the task of randomly sending out, you know, a 50-50 split, and then your email results that come back, you'll be able to compare which one did better, which got more opens. Usually subject line tends to be the most common A/B testing variable. But I've seen people do design-wise, or, you know, again, if you're wondering, does our audience like, you know, straightforward, no bullshit in your face messaging, or soft, touchy feeling? I don't know. Let's test it. What else? Media Center is something they rolled out. It's still in beta form. What this does is you can embed media into emails, and then Sharp Spring will give you click activity. So if you're wondering, oh yeah, we put that PDF in that email, I wonder if anybody clicked it, or we played that video in that email, I wonder if anybody watched it. We've not yet used this, but it's something you can explore and experiment with. So that's the content stuff. Oh, forms. You saw earlier when we go into Contact Manager, we can look at life of a lead and see when people have clicked on a form, and we can view what their form data was. If you get a lot of submissions, that's obviously pretty tedious. But what you can do is go into Forms. And this takes like the form-based approach, so I could pick the actual form over here. I get this overview kind of dashboard. So it tells me I've got 24 total form events. So I'm expecting that 24 people filled it out. I'll click the Leads tab. Actually, if you scroll down, you'll get a list of all the people who filled it out. But what you can do, which is more handy actually, you can export all of these people to a spreadsheet and then look at their data. If I click somebody from that previous page, you know, it would have just pulled up their individual profile and I would have had to drill through for Contact Manager. But in this way, you could export them out.
What other form options? That was a way to copy a form. Oh, if you've got an existing form and you want to go edit it, that's how you would go edit it. What the heck's going on tonight? Oh, if you take the time to build a really complex, nice form, and you're like, man, that was a kick-butt form, we want to use it again, but we want it to be slightly different because that was last year's Christmas party and this is this year's, you can go into edit form mode and save as a copy. Where this comes in handy is, for example, I have a client right now, they've got like seemingly 30 forms out on their website. It's really one underlying form. The platform that they were using let them do that. SharpString doesn't let you do that. In other words, I can't build a form once, put it on 50 different pages, and then when somebody fills it out, know which page they came from. I'd have to build 50 forms. So using this feature, you can at least easily replicate it. You know, I'd have to rename it and call it version A, B, C, D, but at least it's a little bit of a time saver. So that's forms, that's emails. Any questions? All right, what I'm going to show you now are the analytics and metrics part. I'm going to start down at the bottom here, email and workflow reports. This is where you get the data on how well did your email do. Like, for example, we sent out this morning our digital marketing minute. This email job tells you the subject line of the email. This email job column uses the subject line. This tells you how many sends. This tells you the recipients in terms of which list you used. This just obviously tells you when it was sent. And this email report is actually the name of the email as it appears in that email view screen. There's two different report views. If you click email report, you get like standard metrics. How many were sent? How many were open? How many clicks were there? How many unsubscribes? How many spam complaints? You know, so we sent this to 1,982 people. There were 165 opens. Nobody unsubscribed. 15 clicks. No spam. 125 bounces. And then these were the most popular links. But I think there's only really one. Well, no, we do have some secondary links down there. These kind of are, I don't know where they pulled this from. I mean, it obviously comes from the performance reports, but I think these are just random grabs of like top clicks, right? Maybe in sequential order. What you can do though is all of these are hyperlinked. So if I wanted to, for example, know which 15 people clicked on this email, I can get that list right there. So this would be valuable. You know, if we're going to start sending out white paper emails, we want to know who clicked. You know, I could go compile a list, for example, a dynamic list that said if received email, if clicked, and compile that list. But sometimes you just want to, I don't know, start your morning looking at this. What you can do too is, up here under options, you can, this is actually pretty robust reporting. You can save a visual report, but this is really where you can dive deep. You can export any of these various activities, either individually or all in one, to a CSV. So if you're just, you know, if the boss is calling saying, hey, give me a report on who clicked through yesterday's email, you just export clicks to CSV and go, there you go. You know, all of these would be as columns within the master report. So theoretically, it's all in there. So that's Oh, you know what? That's just top level activity. My mistake. Or did I just click the same one? I'll find out. I think I did. Anyway, one of them will literally give you name, open, unsubscribe status, spam status, you know, anything that's reported on here. Another view you get of email reporting, it's the same basic data, it's just a little different view on it, is this one. You get some bar charts and some percentage, but you know, it's the same kind of thing. But yeah, the advantage of that other view is you get that export to CSV capability. So that's email reporting. Sites is really where you can have multiple sites installed in your SharpSpring instance. And then SharpSpring uses its own, via its tracking code, it can give you the same kind of analytics you might get from Google Analytics in terms of search terms used to find your site, top referrers, you know, other sites that people came to you from, your top landing pages, keywords used, you know, a landing page being a page on your site that somebody first came to without necessarily going to the home page. You know.
So how come in your campaign it went to real heavy and then it just dropped off? Is that directly proportional to like maybe some marketing emails that went out or something like that?
You talk about from like the overview? Mm-hmm. Go back and look at that.
Number 8, it looks like. I'm guessing you probably stopped some marketing then.
Yeah, we were marketing. Kevin had a variety of speaking engagements over this period. So we might have been sending out invites and getting more web visits. I don't know why these are so minimal. Label this one, look at that. You know, you can export this to a visual PDF if you wanted. AdWords, if you're running AdWords campaigns, you can connect to your AdWords accounts to share data without having to log into Google Analytics or AdWords separately. And then campaigns is where you can configure and assign activity to different campaigns. So for example, we had an Automation Alley campaign we ran. This shows which leads. One caveat about these campaign reports is it reports on people whose primary campaign is this campaign. So you may be part of 3 different campaigns we're running, but you would report out through just the primary one. I've had conversations with SharpSpring about that. Like, what if I want like, I want to know your activity across all my campaigns, not just your primary one.
And they don't do that.
Yeah, right now they don't. They're considering allowing that feature. I mean, I could go reassign you to a different primary. But usually when you create a new campaign, let me use this up here. You can identify what type it is. You can identify it as an email, social media, paid search, different types. So we would do an email campaign. Group tags in SharpSpring is a way to take people who might be spread across different lists and kind of unify them or unite them in a different way that's kind of different than lists. So for example, well, I don't know, you may have, let's say you had a bunch of different lists that were state-based, right? And in the list,
You know, you've got engineers from Michigan, electricians, and doctors, and all these people. And you got those same people across all different lists. You could, for example, go in, create a tag called engineers, and then go do a search on all the engineers in your Michigan list and tag them as engineers. And then go to Ohio and do the same thing. So now you've still got your Michigan and different state lists, but you've taken away to unite the engineers. So if you come along and say, you know what, we're going to do a campaign and just target engineers. I don't care what state they're in. Let's blast the whole U.S. You could then gather them, report on them, and also send an email around that tag that, you know, saves you a little bit from having to go generate new lists. You can keep those people in those original lists. But you can also use that for bringing people together in a campaign. Costing and goals, you can assign pricing either on a quantity basis or per each lead. The idea being, you know, if we do this campaign and we bring somebody in and we already know, you know, if we get somebody who turns into a prospect, their average value is, you know, $1,000, you can assign them here, and then part of the ROI dashboard, as leads get added to that campaign, will report that out. It'll also keep track of opportunities for those leads and which have closed. Tracking is where you identify which site. Like we've got 2 sites under our instance. So you can assign certain particular pages. Like if you want to know anybody who hits particular pages on your site and roll those up into a campaign, you can do that. This is where you can control that "How did you hear about us" feature that appears. And if you want it to be part of this campaign, it's really about how you can specify a date range. So from a marketing perspective, well, that's content, that's the reporting. We got really, I'm going to try to get us out of here by 3:30 today. You guys need another break, or do you want to keep moving? Because what I want to do is jump into the automation, workflow tasks, and a list. All right, the automation stuff in SharpSpring. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is show you guys lead scoring. As we've seen, as we bumped around, anybody in our contact manager has a lead score. This lead scoring feature, which again is also available via the settings panel. Lead scoring is where you assign the point values for activities or aspects of somebody's profile. So for example, completeness, out of the box, SharpSpring ships assigning 1 point to all these different, you know, name, rank, serial number kind of variables on somebody's profile. They assign 5 points for a phone number, 5 for an email. If in your particular
by SharpSpring or if you're
this is as SharpSpring ships with these default values. Yeah. You know, if in your particular instance you know, man, our audience is just stingy with their emails. We know if we get one, that's got the potential. You could say, you know what, anybody we got an email for, we're going to give them 15 points. Yeah. So you can change all these. But you know, this is pretty much, yeah, like I said, name, rank, and serial number stuff. Where you can get creative and more varied is under engagement. You can set different values. So for example, if you've got a landing page that's part of a campaign, you could assign a 5-point, a 10-point, a 20-point value. So let's say you created a landing page and it's an entry into a white paper that you know when people ask for or download that white paper, they're for sure going to buy off you. You can say that's a high value landing page. I'm going to give somebody, you know, 20 points for engaging in that activity. SharpSpring assigns 15 points for a form. If you, again, in your, you know, situation, know that forms should be higher or lower, because it's like, man, we get people filling forms out all the time, never turns anything. That's not a high value engagement activity for us. You can drop that. Same thing with email clicks, media views. Tracking is where you can even get URL specific. So for example, at Biznet, we've got this marketing automation health check. It's like a 30-question questionnaire that walks somebody through appraising, you know, their readiness for marketing automation. We assign that 5 points. If they hit the thank you page, which means they actually completed it, we give them 15 points. And if they do this magic trick that we've got on our website, we give them 20 points. So all this stuff would roll up into somebody's lead score. So you can kind of control based upon what you're doing on the web, what you're doing email-wise, which activities matter, how to set lead scores. You can also then do things like that health check that we've got. We assign a point score to somebody, and we write that score to a custom field. So now we're saying if somebody's got a health check sales score of 26 or above, we're going to give them 10 points. If it's 51 or above, we're giving 15. So we've created our own kind of custom measurement here. So you could do that too. For example, you could say, if somebody, I don't know, let's say, that progressive profiling example I talked about. Let's say you built a progressive profiling form, and one of the fields in there is, when are you in the market for a product? You could say if somebody says probably not practical for you guys, 6 months or less, give them 100 points, and boom, their lead score would bump up. And we could later set triggers to say if somebody has 100 points, email you guys right now. So you could do that. If somebody says, I'm 3 years out and I got no budget, you can say, you're still interested, we're only going to give you 5 points. We're still going to nurture you with email and stuff, but you're not bumping up to the top of the funnel. And then lead score decay is just a way to measure how much somebody's score is going to decay for lack of activity.
So they can kind of fall off the vine.
Yeah, they will, right. If they're inactive, yeah. And what does it say? Yeah, their lead score to be halved. So in the course of 12 weeks, their score, and it's not like it's going to stay, and then after 12 weeks drop off. It'll slowly increment down. Yeah. So that's where you manage your lead scoring. All right, let's jump into the fun stuff. Okay, tasks and workflows. They're two different halves to the same circle. I like to remember them by the T in tasks represents what they being our audience does. And then the W in workflow equals what we want to do. So for example, we send out an email. They receive it, they open it, they click through it, they fill out a form, or they don't do those things, or they visit an important page, or they do whatever, right? Those you capture and record with tasks. Then based upon what they've done, for example, they got an email, they opened it, they clicked through, we might want to send a follow-up email 2 days later. We might want to increment their lead score by a certain point. We might want to add them to a separate list. We might want to, so that's a way to keep the two separate, because to activate the automation, you have to have both. So I think what we'll talk about first are tasks. They're a little more complex. Some of what you were seeing in that list import are really a lot of task-based activities. What I'm going to do is go create a new task. Okay, so you give it a name. Tasks operate under Boolean logic, either or. So, and you can also create groups of either ors that interface with each other on an either or basis. But really, to create a task, anytime you create a task, you have to have a trigger. A trigger being a SharpSpring-based event that sets, triggers this task to happen. Unfortunately, within SharpSpring, they don't do a good job of color coding what's what in here. Sometimes you kind of have to hunt and peck. But for example, these are the available tasks and triggers. So for example, we could set a, let's use a real world example. So let's say we've got a particular form on our website. We want to add the trigger when a contact fills out the form. And then over in this field, I'm going to pick the form that I want to be the basis for this task. So when somebody fills out the 21st birthday registration form, and here you get some control over when
we could say anytime or during business hours or during non-business hours. I could say anytime. And what I want to do is I want to add this. Can you guys still see that? Add this as a rule for this form or for this task. So we'd add that, and it shows up here under triggers. Now let's say I want to fine-tune that a little bit more, and I want to add a filter that says, visits from the email. I can then select the particular email. I don't know if this is going to be entirely real world, but let's say I had an email that was a birthday invite. Let's pretend that one was a birthday invite. And I don't, if they visit one time from this email, I want to add that as a rule too. So now I've set up a trigger and a task that says, when a contact fills out the form, birthday party registration at any time, and comes from the contact from the email sample 001 time exactly. So now I've kind of created a kind of a subset, or at least the rules for a subset of people who have behaved in this way. I could then add an additional filter. Let's say I could say is owned by Alyssa, and I could add that as a rule too. Let me increase that a bit for you. So now in this case, again, I've kind of winnowed my set down a bit. But what I've got now is I've got a trigger that's going to fire this task. I've set a filter that says they come from this email. I've got this variable saying, or they're owned by Alyssa. That's not what I want, though. I want, they filled out the form, it came from the email, and they're owned by Alyssa. So you can go up here and select when all. So now when these three conditions are met, so now I've taken, think of Venn diagrams. Right? This is a pretty focused group. Yeah. So now I'm going to save this. So now I've saved this set of rules. Now what I would want to do, so that's what they've done, right? They filled out a form, they came from an email, and their lead is Alyssa. What I would probably want to do from my side is send a follow-up email from Alyssa. I don't know that we have one in here, so I'll kind of fake this again. But now I would go create a workflow. I can actually bump up here. A couple of tips. I tend to, when I create work, I didn't do it on the task, but I try to use the word workflow or task or WF or T in my naming of these, because once you start to populate, you get a lot of these things, and they're sitting around, floating around. A lot of times you end up naming your tasks and workflows the same because, again, they're different sides of the same coin, and it can get a little confusing when you're sorting through stuff. I want to make this available in Contact Manager. So I'm going to add this workflow. And so now in this workflow, I'm going to define what I want to do, what we want to do. Create a time-based workflow utilizing a custom field. You can use that if you've created a time or date-based custom field. We're not going to do that in this case. But what I am going to say under events is, and this is where you can control how quickly this workflow is going to enact in response to the task. I don't know if that makes sense, but you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to set this one up to say, for example, 5, I could do minutes, I could do hours, days, weeks, months. I would say 5 days after. And here I have a variety of things I can do under workflows also. And again, if you look at these, a lot of these are things we want to do, right? We want to send an email. We want to send a notification. We want to send a notification to a user. We want to post back lead information. We want to send, we want to add to a list. We want to remove from a list. We want to remove from a workflow. We want to change a lead field. You could change a lead field. So let's say somebody's lead field status is unqualified, but you've got a form out there. You could say, hey, somebody fills out this form. I want to send them a thank you email and also change their unqualified status to qualified, or change their team color to blue instead of white. So you have a whole variety of things here that you can do. What's most often used is sending the emails or sending a notification email. I'll show you an example of what a notification email can be used for in a moment.
but let's say, I don't think I do, but let's say I had a thank you email from Alyssa in response to somebody doing all the things we identified in the past. Somebody filled out the form, they came from that email, and they're owned by Alyssa. So I composed an email from Alyssa saying thank you. I could then, let's pretend this is it. That's not a good example. Let's say it was that one. I would then add that action, and so now really what I've done is created something we want to do that says 5 days after the start of this, send that email. So I would save the changes. Now what I have to do is go back and attach this to my tasks. I showed you task workflows in the order I did, but what I tend to do, I've gotten versed enough at this, I'll actually go create the workflow first. Because then when I go back to the task, I have to assign it to a workflow. But for the sake of the order in which things happen from a training perspective, it makes more sense to show the task first. So I'm going to go back to my tasks. I'm going to scroll down. See, look at all these crazy tasks we have. I'm going to open my task. I can verify it. So when somebody fills out this form, and they came from that email, and they're owned by Alyssa, I want to, and I'm going to go find my November 17th workflow, and it'll give me a synopsis here of what the workflow is, just for confirmation. So when all of these conditions are met, 5 days later, any and all of these people are going to get that email. And so I would save those changes. So now I've created an automation routine. I can just walk away. And this is where it gets into behavior-based. Part of marketing automation is it's end-user behavior-based. We're not dictating, what happens. The end user is. So if somebody got this birthday invite email and opened it right away, 5 days later they're going to get that email, right? If somebody took 3 or 4 days to open the invite, that much later they're going to get this email. And you can imagine how you could, you could piggyback these things. I could create a whole different set of another task that would say, if user received, this email and clicked through, and opened it and clicked through, 3 days after that, send them some other email. So that's why you can really nurture stuff, people based on their activity. Conversely, you can set up a bunch of, not conditions. If somebody, if somebody got this email but did not fill out the form, and they're owned by Alyssa, we compose an email where she'd say, what the heck's wrong with you? Go fill out the form, And that's where you can, when you start doing workflows, you can get, you start out with that first thing. Hey, we're going to send that first email, right? We got people who are going to engage and not engage. What are we going to do with them? These people are easy. We're going to send them the second one. These people, I don't know, what do? Do we resend them the first one slightly different? Do we send them a totally different one? And then out of this one, you're going to have E's and NE's. At one point, do we write off the NE's, or we put them into a drip campaign? When we're done target marketing them, they're going to get our monthly newsletter until they say they don't want it. But it's almost like doing a bracket. We got these engaged people. Somebody who gets down to this point of the tree, if we've set up lead scoring and they visited the landing pages, their lead score is probably like 500. And I could set a task that would say if lead score hits 500, and I could set a workflow that says, send Craig an email right away. A notification email. If you get this email saying, hey, this dude scored 500, he met all the criteria, drop what you're doing and call him. But only you can define, what those key measures are, what those key activities are. But yeah, that's where the real power is. Like SharpSpring did a demo way back when, and they used like a veterinary office as an example. And the vet set up, right off the bat, he set up workflows that, so you bring your pet in, we give it a checkup, get the, shots. 3 months later, we're going to, from that date, we're going to send you a follow-up email. 6 months later, we're going to send you a follow-up email and a reminder that shots are due, 9 months later, they composed all the emails, and then they just walked away. You know, and so they had a custom field that said office visit date or last checkup date. And so you're just getting nurtured with all those emails. I don't have to worry about sending them to you.
So you send out like a customer satisfaction survey after a machine change.
Right.
Yeah, a year after.
Yeah. You know, and again, once you get a little more comfortable and fluid in the system and fluent, you know, you can compose an email that's potentially just one email that plugs in variable data. Hey, you attended you have a variable, a custom field called show attended. You know, dear, you can insert a name. It was great seeing you at you know, please take time to take our survey. And so you can repurpose that email. That's, again, some of the art and science of crafting emails that can take advantage of custom variables. I didn't really show that in the email, but any field in SharpSpring and any custom field you can insert as a custom variable within an email. So, you know, I could drop your name in, I could drop your industry, your company, or if I know, you know, your annual revenue, I could say something like, hey, did you know that companies with annual revenues exceeding, you know, and so that'd be an email for high revenue companies. I might have a second one for low revenue companies. So yeah, this is the real power of it. You know, these two in conjunction. I'll show you what one of the alert emails look like. I mean, you guys filled out that "Are you attending?" form. And so what I have in our Bootcamp instance is a workflow that says when somebody fills out the confirmation email, send me an alert email, a notification email. And it looks like this. So that form is called attendance form. And I'm getting notified because Josh filled out the form, and that's the form notification I got. You guys are right up say, when somebody fills a form on your website right now, you're getting them. I get them too. Yeah. So the one day I followed up with you guys too. Hey, this guy's been back twice. Yeah. It sounds like you need somebody to call.
Right, right.
Yeah, but you can set up these too. You know, and conversely, this could say, hey, this dude hit the 500 score, you know, call him. I mean, you could send specific emails that you've crafted.
Can we add custom fields like after the fact? So if you wanted to add one called existing customer, you can go through and pick off which was already existing or whatever.
Yeah, once you add a custom field, it becomes available to everybody in your contact manager.
We just have to go edit it, or can we have it default to no and then just set them on the ones that we want?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then conversely, like you could have custom fields sitting there, and you could re-import a list with even your same contacts. And if that cell is filled in the spreadsheet, it'll populate for you. What do I want? Oh. Yeah, I mean, this stuff could be a 3-day class on its own. You know, you almost need to conceptualize
your company, but I could see how you have to do a little custom strategy. That's what you guys.
It's better to crawl than Don't think, holy crap, I'm gonna build me a 12-year long. You know, like start simple. You know, I mean, what we usually tell people is get a drip campaign going. Start to pick a primary persona. You know, who's that primary audience you want to reach? What's that message you want to send? You know, what steps do you want to walk them through, and how many steps? Anticipate, engaged, not engaged. You know, talk about lead scoring a little bit. Talk about at what point. I mean, let's face it. This is all marketing, right? At some point, marketing stops. And it's like, hey, sales dude. You know, I used to work in healthcare, and like we used to kid, you know, behind the scenes and go, you know, we're delivering bleeding patients to the doctor's door. That's all we can do. You know, like we're marketing, we're trying to get people and turn over qualified people. We're not trying to take over sales. Like, hey, we're telling you, don't bother with these people. We're not bothering you with them because the data's showing they don't need to be bothered with, but this dude does. But yeah, you know, content's part of the challenge too. But you know, you guys know your audiences and what messages resonate. And Yeah, I mean, and partly another term for marketing automation is lead nurturing. The idea being, the easy sales are going to sell themselves. They're going to close. Then you got other people there. They're not quite ready. You don't want to go bother chasing them. Maybe we nurture them with this. We stay on the radar. We're sending them information. At the right time, they get the right message, and maybe they visit the webpage and you see it and go, "Holy cow! I've been waiting for him to come back or visit the."
A good question is actually if you have a 500 point person lead. The question is if they will come to you with or without nurturing. You never know,
Right.
Of course, but it's a good question because at that point they seem to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Interested about what you will do and maybe.
Well, I know you have to be careful too of people who are just window shopping. I mean, somebody could increment to a 500 point score.
Yeah.
Conversely, if you've got a landing page that's worth 500 points, somebody could rocket to the moon and.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, obviously nothing's foolproof in life. This isn't foolproof, but it's better than what used to be, which was send out email, look at your metrics, say, well, some people clicked, some didn't. At least now we can say those are the people who clicked, those are the web pages they visited. I mean, I got another client, they're a retirement community, and we're going to do some follow-up emails to like people who have clicked through. We send out a monthly. Like everyone who's at least opened and clicked through every email we've sent so far. The idea being, those people have more interest than people who were random or didn't open.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of, in a subtle way, almost say like, hey, we know you're interested in this.
At least why are you interested?
Yeah.
No.
Or just change the message a little bit, because all we've been sending out is just a generic monthly drip newsletter. Focusing on a recipe or different activity, and so yeah, we've been pretty low key and benign. But now we've got enough data up that we're thinking, hey, we could. We'll probably look at too, like which people are clicking all the time on the recipes. Well, then maybe we'll play up the cooking classes in the dining room. People are clicking always on the physical activities. That's where you can get a little bit specific. If you're interested in the recipes, that's what I'm going to send you, food stuff. If you're clicking on the exercise stuff, I'll tell you more about our exercise, And two, you have to have the content and some of the infrastructure in place, Like when you're building these campaigns, you can see where you have to anticipate, hey, wow, we got nothing on the website about that.
Right.
We at least need to create some of that content, create that web page, anticipate where do we want to drive people to and through, and what was I going to show? Oh, a couple of things. This is an example of an email that's crafted to be a very personalized, non-marketing. Somebody got this. Despite what I say about the pop-up preview, I'll show it. If somebody gets this, they're none the wiser that it came from SharpSpring and was automated. And if somebody opens and clicks, we can, track their activity. The final version that gets sent does have a little, really faint, small, Biznet with our address, and click here to unsubscribe. But yeah, this is an example of, it's a personal email from Kevin. It just happens to come out of this platform. One advantage to having an email like this, so we're doing a variable insert up there. I think that's the only one we're doing. Yeah. Let me show, if I go into the editor. Merge variables is where you have access to, any of the standard fields. Lead owner might be something you use a lot. Lead owner being the salesperson, who's assigned here. Custom field is, if you check box when you create a custom field, make available as an email merge variable. You can put that here. Like I think one of the messages, like when somebody takes our health check, we tabulate their score, we kick them back a response, and we merge one of these. Your health check score of, insert score. And then based upon their high, medium, or low, we have different content that we plug in. So yeah, that's how you can insert different variables. One other thing I wanted to show you was, click away from how smart emails can be used. So that was a case of a very personalized email. It wasn't meant to be a marketing blast, you know. I mean, I think we did send it out to a list, but let's say you get a new lead or a contact and you're like, man, they're right for that. If you pull them up, you pull up Steve and you say, send smart email. What this does is it allows me, as Jerry, to go pick the email I want to send. And then when I select prepare email to send, it bumps me back over to here, but I can schedule the email. I'm not actually going to send it. And what will happen is it'll actually come from me, but it's, you know, a templated email. Again, the value being it's in SharpSpring. The send and the receipt of it and all the post-receipt activity of that recipient will be logged here in SharpSpring. You know, I've probably taken time to craft this and have a few people review this.
So it'll be your contact, but it'll still say Kevin at the end of the.
Yeah, that was a bad example.
Right. Okay.
All right. I mean, to be honest, what we might do is change that to be a variable saying lead owner.
Right.
So then I'm sending smart emails to people I own.
Right.
This would be a custom variable that says lead owner title, lead owner phone. You know, it autofills. You can see where it autofills my name with my email address. So you're right. This isn't the best example.
So you can embed that in there, and it would look like it came from you.
Right. You know, and then then I could go create a task that would say anybody who receives this smart email and click through it. I don't know, move them to a list, send them something else, increment their lead score. Yeah, and it's definitely something you grow into. I mean, like I said, you don't start out saying let's create the be-all end-all master plan. But yeah, I think starting with some drip campaigns, starting with a targeted campaign, like, okay, we're going to send these 6 emails. I mean, aside from getting people to open and click and read, we'll have to talk a little bit about from a KPI perspective, what are your goals?
We're going to set that up later.
Yeah, I'll schedule probably tomorrow. I'll get back in touch with you. So that's marketing automation. So you got a CRM, that's where all your contacts, your pipeline, lead scoring, status, all that happy stuff. The visitor tracking, that's the tracking code that's out on the website that lets us do all that data gathering. The email creation, sending capabilities, and then all the automation stuff. I will show you lists. You can cobble together lists that are using a lot of the same functionalities you do for tasks. So for example, and this is where some of the power comes into. You can create 2 types of lists. You can create a rule-based list or manual. Rule-based means it'll grow organically based upon your criteria. So if you set up well, I'll show you when we go in. Manual means, well, actually I misspoke. Manual is you literally want to add people manually. I had a client who got in trouble this morning because they built a bunch of manual lists, then thought they wanted to go delete, purge a list like you did. And they realized that they had manually assigned some of those people to those lists. And I found it out when I said, well, I can just re-import those people for you. And they said, yeah, but we did it manually. And I'm like, well, and it's lost. If you had set the list to be rule-based, like if this or that, as soon as I brought those people back in, they'd get added to the list.
rule-based tends to be the way to go. So you create the list, or you give it a name. You can give it a description if you want. This is what I was referring to. You can have the list be dynamic, meaning people will be added anytime moving forward, or in the case of this checkbox, backwards in time if they meet the criteria. So this is where potentially you could have no list in your system. You just have everybody in the contact manager. You probably have to create one master list called everybody. You compose some emails, you blast them out, and then you could 6 weeks later say, all right, now I want to send an email to everybody who is A, B, and C. You could come back in here and build your A, B, and C list after the fact. So I can come along and say, I'm going to make this dynamic. And as you can see, this is all the same stuff we saw in task building. So I could go build a list that says, add the trigger when they, filled out the form at any time. I'll actually do this and see if it builds. And I add this rule. So now I've got two conditions. Conversely, if I'm just doing a single purpose list, I could say build it once, and it'll go apply these conditions, and then it won't capture anybody new who comes into the system. So I could build this list right now, and if somebody came along tomorrow and filled out the 21st birthday form and was owned by Kevin, they wouldn't get added to this list. I'm going to save it this way. I'm going to see if anybody gets added to it. It should. The beauty of that is you can build a static list and at any time refresh it. So you can almost manually do what the dynamic feature would do and have a little bit more control. See if this gets built up. Yeah, file management's important. Naming schemes, creating folders and directories is important in here. As you can see, we've got every couple of months we go through here, we send this list around, and people go, it's like, hey, do you need this list anymore or not? And we'll cross it off, and then we'll list there's somebody going and just purge them. Otherwise, it becomes a bureaucratic nightmare. But yeah, we've got all kinds of. So here we go. So this list has 125 members. So there were 125 people in our database who filled out the reg form and are owned by Kevin. So now I can click. I'll show you something about lists. Holy crap, I guess there's more. Sometimes when you build bigger lists, it takes SharpSpring a few minutes to catch up to itself. Yeah. One thing I do want to show you. Go back down here. Yeah, so now it's saying 937. If I click the name, I can edit it. Members are, people who meet this criteria and are active. They haven't unsubscribed or they don't have a bad email. The exclusions tab lists people who meet the criteria but have either chosen to unsubscribe, like, bump it up even more, like Terry Krausen, unsubscribed. So at some point in time, maybe not even to the 21st birthday invite, at some point in time, Terry clicked unsubscribe. So SharpSpring says, hey, you meet this criteria, but you said don't email us. So we're encompassing you in this list build, but we're really not going to send you anything. Invalid email is usually a signal of a hard bounce. Yeah. A hard bounce is an email that either it's a dead email, the domain is dead. It's an email that's never getting to its destination. Soft bounces, the criteria SharpSpring uses for soft bounces is, if we've attempted to send you 9 times, and we attempt to send you a 10th time and it's soft bounces, we're marking you as a hard bounce. You're never getting an email from us again. If we have sent you 9 times and on the 10th one it got to you,
we then reset we reset it to 15 because we figure, we get problems with you. So we'll give you 5 more chances to soft bounce. And if you do, because, part of email quality is, how clean is your list, how many of your emails get through. Spam factors into your email quality, bounces do too. I have another client, that retirement community. What I do is, we've got 6,000 people in your list, or 8,000, actually more now. 8, but we were running with 8,000 for most of the year. So invariably, every time we send an email out, somebody hit the soft bounce threshold, and so is now hard bounce. Somebody hard bounced for the first time. Some people unsubscribe. Some people, 1 or 2, spam us. What I do is, for every monthly send, I regenerate their list. And I have the list criteria to be, if the user has an email address, and if the user is not unsubscribed, not hard bounced, and some other criteria. So then what I do is I rebuild it. It's a static list, but I rebuild it each time. And so now I'm guaranteed each month of sending to at least at that snapshot in time, is a clean, good list, versus just sending the same old deadbeats all the time. Yeah, this guy says 3 bounces. SharpSpring recently, they used to use 3 soft bounces as their flip to hard bounce measure. They just last week upped it to the 9 count. But this shows you that this person, has hit that limit.
Yeah, change shows.
Yeah. And you may think, like, well, what the hell? Why don't you just go remove these people? Well, the problem is, if I go delete them, and somehow I go buy a list, or I get them added somewhere else, and they get put in here, I will have lost that ability to know they flipped this to burn. So then I send to them again,
Right.
Technically, right, I'm in violation now. So that's where I've talked to SharpSpring too about, is there a way you can take these people, create a sub-contact manager that's like,
Although I've unsubscribed from things and it says you're unsubscribed, and then 2 weeks later I'm back on the list again.
Another feature we can do in here is there's what they call granular unsubscribe. Well, let me go back and, so all these people met the criteria, right? Now I just generated this list. It was a one-off, static. You go over here, a couple of things you can do. I could change the list settings if I want. I'm like, oh damn, I don't want the owner to be Kevin. I don't want the owner to be I'm like, okay, now that's what I want. Now I can save changes. No, I have to go back. Let's just build this once. Save those changes. I get prompted just to confirm, hey, you're changing your list setting. You say yes. And we'll let that chug along a bit. While this screen is up, you can click out of it and go elsewhere. We'll go look at it. So now it's down to 86 people with 6 either unsubscribes or hard bounces. Let's say if I wanted to rerun this list next week or next month, what I can do is go in and select Rebuild List, and on November 24th, it would rerun this list using that same criteria, and it'd probably add some people because theoretically new people come on board, the J-Mones. So that's a way you can kind of manually do the dynamic version. What else can you do from here? From lists, you can export people. You can export those who have been part of the exclusion tab. Here's a way you could one-off quickly send an email to this list. So as opposed to going into the email section and picking the list, now you're here. When you click this, you'll go prompted to pick which email you want to send, schedule it, and then schedule workflow for a list. So let's say we had a workflow. Well, like we created that workflow for Alyssa, right? It said 5 days later, send an email. I could go cherry pick that one workflow and assign it to this list. And so what would happen is the moment I did that,
5 days after the start of that, it would send that email. You can split a list. You can add leads from a different list, so you can kind of merge lists. You can create a sample list from... Oh, so you can set some criteria here and say, oh, you know, create a sub list of this list, and I want, you know, 40 people to be in it, and sharp string will rifle through and randomly grab them. I don't know why somebody would want to do that, but I guess if you wanted to do your own, well,
Study,
yeah.
that may be comparison.
The problem is I don't know, like, okay, what if I did that and then I went back and said, now send me a 46-member list? Would there be same people on 2 of those lists potentially?
Yeah.
Like the A/B testing will guaranteed split.
Yeah.
I don't know if this would.
But yeah, that's
I haven't played with that enough to. You can remove the whole list. Like if you're like, oh, you know, I created this list just to send out an email. I don't need the list anymore. You can delete the list. Remove members from lists. So you could keep the list, but drop these people from the list, but keep them in Contact Manager. You can unsubscribe these people. You can rebuild the list. And this is what a client had me do this morning and they're regretting. Delete all leads and lists. This will go in, we'll delete the list, and it'll purge all of these people from the Contact Manager. And their history and their records.
Don't do that. That's the fine.
Yeah. But yeah, I use the rebuild list thing quite a bit. You can manually add people if you're like, you know, for whatever reason. You know, do I know if Mike met the criteria? No, but I just manually added one because. Now, what would happen is if Mike doesn't meet that criteria and I go back and rebuild that list next week, Mike's probably getting dropped off. Because it's literally going back to the database and going. Yeah, lists are. I've actually, when I first started using SharpSpring, used to do a lot of workflow task stuff to build lists. But then I realized, like I just showed, how robust the list building is. And so I'll just create the list on the fly. It's almost like a shortcut, you know, because it's, you can see it's already giving you access to everything you would do here. You know, this is setting the criteria of what they've done, and this is then saying, oh, based on what they did, we want to add them to a list. Well, get that. I'm going to create a list that says this is what they've done, and
So basically, we have different ways to achieve the same result.
yeah. And like anything, you know, first do the long math, and then you just jump right into the short math and save yourself some trouble. Yeah, this is that client for whom I've got. What are What I tend to do, just some tricks of the trade, I create a folder for all my clients and either call it list additions or list imports or whatever, and anytime I do a new import, I tend to import it as a brand new list, and I tend to store it in kind of this collective folder. Gives me a little bit of a paper trail. You know, we would do this on your behalf, but if you're like, damn it, how'd that, I go, we imported them on, you know, whatever. What else do we do? Oh, here's that list I have for them. It's called Everyone Except Hard Bounces and Unsubscribes. Yeah, they just bought a couple of lists. It used to be 8,000, now it's 15,800. Most of these people are like 70 and above. They're either 70 or above, or they're their adult children. You know, that's the prime
I
target.
imagine that every week you have a lot of fall off his heart.
You know, you'd be surprised. I get a few more spam complaints from this group than, you know, I think old people tend to be. Yeah. But no, in fact, I went to an event, this is Henry Ford Village. They're out on the corner of Ford and Greenfield. They're actually on the grounds of the birthplace of Henry Ford. It was a really nice retirement community. I went out there for an event, and I was at a table with 3 other 80-year-old women. Well, hey, how many of you have email addresses? Oh, raise my hand. So, yeah, because we had to overcome, I think, that little perception by this client. No, people don't email. I'm like, well, grandma's walking around with smartphones and
Of course
iPads.
they do. They just
and
have more trouble doing it.
Yeah.
Well, they send all the jokes out. Those are spammers, didn't they?
So the list criteria here, change list settings. So my criteria is when a contact has a field, this displays weird, but it's really like you did. I said email with a space. So it's a populated email field and the hard bounce email address with anything except one. You know, SharpSpring being database driven is, you know, 1-0 based. So a hard bounce email address with anything except one is essentially a 0, 0 being it's not a hard bounce. You know, 1 being an indicator of it is a hard bounce. And then, yeah, contact has the field unsubscribed with anything except one, same thing. So anybody who's got an active email address, anybody who's not hard bounce, anybody who's not unsubscribed. When did I run this? October 22nd? You know, when I ran it, there were no exclusions. Now there's 3. So apparently between now and then, some people have unsubscribed or hard bounced. Yeah, so 3 people. But if I reran this list, my exclusions would be 0. And then when I send the next email and I come back and look at this list, there'll be some exclusions there. Yeah, how do lists look like? And that's a list they purchased. Where's my test? No, I have a testing list here. It's got me and a person at the ad agency. We've got in their database, prospects are like the actual senior themselves, and then contacts are the adult children or somebody who said, you know, I'm acting on behalf of my aunt or whoever. Like we're about to do an email for this group. It's a Thanksgiving mailer, and there's 2 different emails. One's going to the prospects, so to the adult senior themselves, and then the other's going to their adult children. The message being, hey, when you're home for the holidays, here's the things to look for that might be signs that mom and dad are ready to move out of the house and come live with us. So we have, like I have in their contact manager, every time I've imported lists, we have a custom field called source. They have all kinds. We capture age if we know it. This is coming off a form. When people attend an event, if they want to request a tour, we capture that info. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, here we go. So source, we either use contact, prospect, or CP to identify what they are. And now what I'm going to have to do, because up to date, we've sent the same emails to everybody, contact or prospect. So in fact, tomorrow morning, I'm going to have to go rifle through. I'm going to have to create a list build that says if source field contains word contact or acronym CP or the variety of different ways. I mean, it was bad data import on my part because I wasn't always consistent in what I used. Essentially, I'm going to have to build a list of everybody who's a contact or who's a prospect and then validate. Anytime you build lists, like do some random testing validation, just to be sure you're not sending the wrong date. All right, it's 3:45. I ran long. Anything questions or?
A little bit more. Here's some good nuggets. Powerful. A lot more powerful than I knew.
Is there any way to back up the content or context? To back it up, I mean, in case of, I don't know. Yeah, something like this, I don't know.
To do a backup? Yeah, do an export. Yeah, you could go into Contact Manager. Yeah, just go Export Manager and but yeah, get your contacts in, look at your pipeline stages, get that set. Think about a drip campaign once a month or once a quarter. I mean, for you guys, I don't know if there's enough news or announcements to warrant monthly, but maybe
Well, I'm curious to see that once we start dripping something out there, the
what
analytics should tell us right away if it's working.
Do you have any best practices in terms of how often to send to set a marketing campaign? 7 days, 2 weeks, a month. I know it's not easy to say, but
I mean, at the outset, less frequent is better than more frequent. Because you don't want to risk alienating people and turn them off. And, there is a feature in here called granular unsubscribe where you can set up different categories. This client
send me less often or something.
Or I want to unsubscribe from your event emails, but I still want your monthly thing.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're sending 3 or 4 different types of emails and there's only one unsubscribe, you lost somebody from everything. You've probably seen those if you subscribe to trade journals. It's like, I don't need the
4 options.
I don't need the daily alert. Yeah, the monthly is good.
Right.
Stop inviting me to events.
Stop giving me your daily thoughts. I don't care.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're going to talk tomorrow, it sounds like.
Yeah. Another thing I want to let you guys know, we hold weekly webinars. I don't know if you guys got an invite. If not, we'll get one for sure. They used to be Thursdays at 2. We moved them to Thursdays at 11. They're a half hour. They're like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, down and dirty, single topic. Like we've done one on importing lists. We did one on creating tabs.
Okay, so will it
so
tell
they're
us
like,
what the topic is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
They can be open forum. Like we're probably also going to start a whole separate open mic user group, like a different day, different session, but
right.
Bring your questions, bring your problems.
That's a good idea. Yeah, especially if it's a smaller group anyway,
Yeah, because I mean,
days or something,
30 minutes.
Well, I'm sympathetic, right? You guys are going to go back and go. But yeah, the idea being we're doing the webinar.
Give me some ideas too. I was going to talk to Craig afterwards. I'm like, oh man, we could do this, and
well, right. You don't know what you can do until you've seen what the tool can do, right? If the saw is just sitting there, you're like, let me do that. When somebody shows you, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're a very niche business, so we've already said like we get very niche customers. So this is going to help us pinpoint like there's certain people we care about, and
well, and the certain people at the certain level of a certain propensity. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very good seeing you.
Thanks for the visit.
You guys, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry.
Josh, you betcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Ooh, thank you. What, you guys are still, okay. You guys are still considering, or?
Oh, we still want to subscribe tomorrow, actually. This is the point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're ready. We just wanted to be ready to use it as soon as possible.
Well, and, I mean, I have other clients who have come through this too, and that, when you guys start using it, call me and I'll walk you through stuff.
Yeah.
Last thing we want to do is push you off and go, good luck. Then we're like, oh yeah, that was.
Good preparation. I'm pretty tech savvy, and I've been playing around with the sandbox. So I mean, clarifying a lot of things here. And I didn't know much about the tasks and workflows.
Yeah.
That's
the automation.
Yeah.
Without that, it's just what?
Right.
Just the CRM and email.
Yeah. So learning that was very useful. It's kind of coming up and developing a strategy.
Yeah, I mean, there's some even higher and trickier stuff. To be honest, we don't even do.
Yeah.
Adding dynamic content.
Yeah, you add them, step by step.
right,
First of all, having something is more than nothing. I mean, it's our case, and we build it step by step and reach that point somewhere in the future. Yeah, but basically, what is the next step? How we do you have the information about subscription?
No,
Yeah, get back in touch with Kevin.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent him an email, and he sent me over some documents, about the steps that it would take to integrate and things like that.
Yeah, because like our
There's
do-it-yourself plan has a couple of additional options, like a list import. There's some email setup things we recommend that kind of help you get whitelisted through various spam filters. And what the tech guys will handle that. But yeah, there's some additional things we can do to smooth the transition for you.
That's great.
All right, cool.
Okay,
Well,
thank you so
pleasure
much.
meeting you. Thank you.
Thanks again, Jerry. Pleasure meeting you.
Hope it cools off for you.
I'm getting out of here.